We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
I mean, what's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
We go legal on this?
I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We are live here on YouTube, and it's time to preview Week 11 in the NFL.
11.
Yes.
Wow.
Week 11.
It's going quick.
Yeah, it's almost done. We'll be into. Just can't wait till the season's over so we can talk off season.
It's winter weather now. Not just
freezing
here,
up.
but Buffalo, snow. It's getting there.
The thunderstorm's coming.
It's December football in November.
Really is. We'll get to some of the weather games and all the fun stuff. But first, remember Thursday Night Football is the Tennessee Titans at the Green Bay Packers.
It is.
We previewed that game briefly with Nick Wright yesterday. And the great Nick Wright, as you called him. I think Nick, even as a polarizing TV figure, that's what happens when you're on TV. You're always polarizing because, Chris is polarizing. People think Chris hates his team.
Well, you're polarizing or boring.
True.
I think that's your two options.
Yeah. So Nick's polarizing.
Yeah.
And but I think he was a great interview yesterday. A great discussion, really. Mm-hmm. Football discussion, Chiefs discussion, and a little Thursday Night Football preview. So go listen to that if you haven't already. But just to we were tight on time yesterday, so let's confirm our picks for the Tennessee Green Bay game. Green Bay's favored by 3.
Yep.
We'll confirm our picks right now, and then I'm gonna get my coin flip generator going.
Yes.
Did I do it on the air yesterday?
You did.
Okay, so I already said Tennessee.
You committed to Tennessee, yeah.
Did you officially commit?
I don't think I don't know, but I'm also going with Tennessee. Did you know that against the spread, the Titans I think are 7-0 in the last 7 games, and Green Bay are 0-5 as favorites against the spread?
Really? Just covering.
Yes.
And Titans getting 3 here.
The Titans are 7-0 against the spread, so that feels like a Tennessee cover. And to be honest, I think Tennessee probably wins. Yeah,
I'm hoping it's a good game. It should be a good game. That feels like one of those where people are betting on Green Bay's offense that just never came back, and then they're betting against Tennessee's defense, which continues.
And by the way, the idea that Christian Watson's going to be a spark, I'm in
that boat.
Well, they played a ton of man coverage last week, and every time they played man coverage, Christian Watson ran past his man for an open, target. The Titans don't play an awful lot of man coverage, and they're better at it than Dallas. So it feels like the Christian Watson thing is going to be a one week shebang. Like this week, back to regular scheduled programming will resume tonight.
You think so?
Yeah,
we'll see. We shall see. But we're all in on the Titans, as was Nick. So go listen to the whole breakdown. It was a lot of fun. So let's get into the rest of this weekend's action. Starting with the best games of the week, Dallas Cowboys at the Minnesota Vikings. Dallas favored by 1.5 against the 8-1 Vikings. Dallas falls to 6-3. Couple teams coming off of very different circumstances. Both teams easily could have been 7-2.
Yes.
Coming into this game. But instead, Dallas blows a 14-point lead. Minnesota comes back. What was the biggest deficit? 17 against Buffalo? 17-point deficit. And, of course, the miraculous dropped snap, touchdown, and the whole thing. Paul Allen, the Vikings broadcaster, you've been following him for a while, right? Just it's great to see him going viral with
that
his
guy's
awesome
got
calls.
One of the best sort of voices. Like one of my favorite things about all these big plays is when it gets during the week and you're kind of reviewing and seeing the kind of different angles or mic'd up segments or NFL film stuff. You hear the local broadcast guys, not just whoever was doing the national Fox, CBS, whatever broadcasts. So guys like Paul Allen, who have, let's face it, like objectively more exciting voices than a lot of these national play-by-play guys, they go front and center with their calls, which are often way more entertaining than whatever was on the regular broadcast. So, yeah, Paul Allen's got some classics down the years and had a good one for that ridiculous Justin Jefferson catch.
Yeah, the local guys are supposed to be biased. You're supposed to be animated for the home team. So you get a little bit more emotion there.
That level of deep-seated bias can motivate you to some over-the-top calls, which is what you want in these situations.
Which is great. That's what I mean. They're only on locally, so it's okay. You're not offending anyone. Anyway, Dallas at Minnesota, and the Cowboys favored by 1.5. What are you looking for in this one?
So, Christian Darrisaw, Minnesota Vikings left tackle, now the number 1 graded left tackle in the NFL, jumped Andrew Thomas last week. He got a concussion in that Buffalo game, left the game. Now, NFL players apparently have a median return-to-play timetable of 9 days from a concussion.
Wow.
So that's after a week.
Look at you doing the research.
For those of us that aren't great at the math, So that would put him after this game. I also read somewhere, now, the further into this rabbit hole I go, the less concrete the information is. But I also read that the players that return to play the quickest are skill position guys, receivers, that kind of thing, as opposed to offensive linemen whose job it is to get hit in the head about 50 times a game, right? So my conclusion in all this is I think it's unlikely that Christian Darrisaw plays this week, which would be crippling for Minnesota.
Unless you get Blake Brandel. Had that good week last week.
I mean, look, he had a good week last week, and it came against good opposition, and kudos to him. But the drop between Christian Darrisaw and him trying to stop Micah Parsons, I still think is pretty precipitous.
Brandel had a career-high 46 snaps. We talked about him on the review show just a little bit. Oregon State product, sixth rounder for the Vikings a couple years ago, and in his last year at Oregon State, one of the top pass-blocking grades in the nation. If he's filling in, yeah, it's definitely something where Dallas can exploit it, moving Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence around, and try to get those one-on-one matchups.
Yeah. So, I think that's a massive element of this game. If Darrisaw can't play, I think that Vikings offense is going to be in some trouble against what I think is the league's number 1 defense in pressure rate. They blitz a reasonable degree. They use stunts a lot. They cause problems for offensive lines generally. The Vikings offensive line has creeped into the top 10.
They've made it.
Yeah.
They're in there.
But that's with Darrisaw in the lineup.
So we do talk about the Vikings offensive line. They're better from a run game perspective than they are pass blocking. But we've seen great improvement from Ezra Cleveland at left guard, center, Garrett Bradbury. The only real weakness that you mention every week is Ed Ingram, the rookie right guard. But is this still something that Dallas can exploit with their pass rush? But on the other hand, for Minnesota, I'm looking at the run game again. I mean, Dallas gets absolutely gashed by Green Bay last week. A big part of the whole Dallas blowing the 2-score lead, Green Bay in their comeback attempt, it wasn't Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball all over the field. It was the run game. They were still going run game, and creating pass plays off of that. You've got Dalvin Cook running behind a good run-blocking offensive line. Could be a huge advantage for Minnesota here.
Yeah, and that was, Green Bay did the same thing against Buffalo. That was how they tried to come back in that game. Run. They're not passing to execute these comebacks. So, yeah, I think if the Vikings are going to win this, if they don't have Darrisaw, which at this point I'm assuming is the case, if they don't have Darrisaw, I think they have to try and run the ball and keep the offense ticking over with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison and win that way. If they can't do that, I don't think they have any real shot.
For perspective, it's the number 2 run-blocking team in the NFL by grade, right behind the Cleveland Browns, just ahead of the Chicago Bears. Right, we've got a couple of those NFC North teams finding their run game as far as winning up front this year. So I think that's a key part of this game. And then, of course, from Minnesota's perspective, was there a more, not to take anything away from Kirk Cousins here, was there a more valuable game from a non-quarterback than Justin Jefferson last week and what he did?
No.
I mean, the 4th and 18, but really every key play was Justin Jefferson either winning with separation, winning at the catch point, whatever it might have been. Every big play for the Vikings rolling through Justin Jefferson outside.
No, he was huge. I mean, Justin Jefferson had the kind of game where he said, I'm the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I think he's one of 5 receivers maybe that are capable of games like that, where on any given day they look like the best receiver in the NFL. Obviously, the key to being that guy is doing that every single week and, being the most consistent at that. I'm not quite sure that Jefferson is that over certainly this season, but like he's right up there. And him against Trayvon Diggs is obviously a pretty exciting matchup. But I just think because of that pass blocking potential problem for the Vikings, the less that he has to do this game, the better.
So I could see Minnesota trying to run the ball like crazy. On the other side, all season, I think it's been an uneven offensive performance from the Dallas Cowboys, right? We have Cooper Rush playing a chunk of those games. We have Dak Prescott. We had an early start where he was not good against the Tampa Bay Bucks. He comes back from injury. Seems like he's getting better. Last week, a couple interceptions, not on the same page as his receivers. And last week did feel like the pass game was so reliant on a CeeDee Lamb, where I know I'm just saying, hey, Justin Jefferson was like the dude for Minnesota, but Minnesota still has Adam Thielen. You bring in TJ Hawkinson to tight end. I think Dallas is really missing the second and third option, right? They're missing maybe an Amari Cooper type. But are they too reliant on CeeDee Lamb right now? We've seen inconsistent play from Noah Brown. We had Michael Gallup leave the field with an injury last week, and he's coming back from injuries. He's not necessarily the same player. That's where I feel like Dallas's offense is just a tick behind where they should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are. That's why they're being linked to guys like OBJ. They need that extra guy, and I think they needed it in the offseason. Like we understand that the move to trade away Amari Cooper was not a Amari Cooper doesn't help this offense move. It was we're getting fed up of how much he helps the offense relative to the amount of money we have committed to him, and really it's some displaced anger or displaced frustration for the lack of value we're getting out of Ezekiel Elliott. But we can't do anything about that one because the contract is different and we're stuck with him. So Amari Cooper was kind of the fallout from just like reflected blame that belongs somewhere else. But it made them worse, and that's an issue.
All right, Minnesota, what have they won? 7 straight now. Pretty much they haven't played a bad game other than week 2 against the Eagles. The way I consistently describe the Vikings is solid, right? In a league where a lot of teams just don't feel that good, the Vikings being solid across the board, offense, defense, pass rush, coverage, pass game, run game, solid across the board is winning a lot of games in this year's NFL. So
yeah.
They're going to cover. Are they going to? I mean, they're underdogs. Who do you like in this one?
I like Dallas because of that Darisaw injury. If he's playing, I think it shifts it a little bit, and the Vikings have a much better chance. But I think that could be. I mean, Micah Parsons going up against essentially a backup tackle feels like an absolute disaster.
Should I give? I'm flipping coins this week.
Yeah.
Should I give what I would say? Should I give a pick for what I would do and then flip the coin, or just flip it?
I feel like out of interest, in theory, flipping a coin, you should go 50-50, right? But that's not the way chance works. So what do you think your record is going to be flipping a coin for every game?
I think I'll be a game or two above 500.
Above 500?
Yeah, I'll be above 500.
Okay, all right.
I think this and just my picks being so bad, they're still my picks. So my picks will regress to the mean positively here.
Okay.
Positively regress here.
I'm
going, what did I say? Heads is the home team?
I mean, I don't think it really matters this time around. You can assign it again.
Heads is the home team. I'm going, it's heads. So I'm taking the Minnesota Vikings as home dogs, which is what I would have done.
Okay, perfect.
This is great.
I'm just 100% here for you to flip a coin and go like 2-12.
This is scientific. I mean, if you really want to put your money where your mouth is, you can go to Symbol. You've heard me talk about them before, our sponsor, Symbol. They have the best offer yet for new users. Symbol is offering a $500 risk-free deposit for new users who join the stock market for sports. When you sign up with the code FOOTBALL, your first deposit comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're hesitant on joining or simply haven't joined yet, now you can with a risk-free deposit. As a reminder, Symbol lets you trade pro and college teams like stocks and even earn cash dividend payouts when your team wins. Symbol is a peer-to-peer market that took the thrill of sports betting and turned it into the stock market to give fans a new way to speculate on your favorite pro and college teams. And now you can join with a $500 money-back guarantee. So you download the Symbol mobile app for iOS by searching SIMBULL in the App Store. Use code FOOTBALL to get your risk-free deposit up to $500. Whether you want to invest in an up-and-coming team like the Giants, yeah, that's right, the Giants tearing it up this season, or the top dogs in the league, the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs, Symbol allows you to buy and sell team stocks and profit from your sports knowledge. So check it out right now.
And if you're enjoying the show, hit the like button.
Yeah, if you are, hit the like button. And tell your friends. Get more people here. Let's get more people over here. All right, let's go to one of the other games of the week here. Chargers hosting the Chiefs. It's Sunday Night Football. This was flexed into Sunday Night Football. Thank you, NFL. Chiefs are favored by 5.5 at the Chargers here. We do have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams practicing, which is nice because the Chargers have been absolutely depleted at receiver for the majority of the season.
Yeah, depleted in a lot of places. The Chargers, the same story every single season for them. Injuries just bite deep at this point in the season, and they don't have the team we thought they were going to have when we started the year. This is one of those games, we're getting a few of them this week where we've seen it already, so this season, albeit a different version of the Chargers with those injuries. But the last time we saw this game, Chris Jones absolutely wrecked the Chargers interior. He actually didn't get a ton of joy going against the rookie Zion Johnson. And then he kind of shifted to the other side of the line and absolutely murdered Matt Filer for the rest of that game. Now, since that point, Zion Johnson has had some ups and downs. Like that, he kind of had a couple of games where he looked like he might be really good right out of the gate and play at a really high level over the season. And that was one of them. And he's played sort of worse as the year wore on. So I'm not sure if Jones will stay over Matt Filer and just destroy him all game long, or if he'll bounce around and attack both of them over the course of the game. But either way, if the Chargers haven't figured out how to stop that happening, that's going to be a major issue for them having any kind of offensive success.
So the other thing, first matchup, Chargers were healthier until, of course, Justin Herbert punctured his rib cartilage or whatever it was. That happened in this game against the Chiefs, Thursday Night Football back in week 2, and Herbert played through it. He couldn't even make a throw on a couple passes, but then hits this ridiculous 4th and 1 down the field. But it was a pick 6, right? It was a miscommunication, pick 6 that absolutely turned the game. The Chargers were winning. They're going in, trying to score, and they throw a pick 6. And that's how the Chiefs won. Patrick Mahomes, it was actually, I think, his worst game of the season against the Chargers. Threw 3 passes that should have been intercepted, 2 of which were in the end zone, or at least 1 was in the end zone. 3 turnover-worthy plays, but had no interceptions in this game. And I was looking it up, too. The Chargers played a lot of man coverage in this, right? We talk a lot about Brandon Staley as this zone-heavy coach, and he's going to be the too high and, the thing that the Chiefs don't like to play against. And that wasn't really the case. They were manning up, but I don't know that they have – I don't know if they trust their back end now with, J.C. Jackson out and everything. I don't know if they trust their secondary in the same way. I also look from just a mismatch standpoint. The Chargers' run defense is bad for like the 10th straight year. And the Chiefs do still have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Is this one of those games where they rely on the big dudes up front to create some holes? Because it's a run defense grade over the last 2 weeks, just for perspective, 38 for the Chargers and 33 against the Falcons. 2 teams that run the ball well. The Chiefs should have that advantage in this game.
Yeah, and the Chiefs have a better run-blocking offensive line than pass-protecting. It seems like every week we're like, the Chiefs should just run the ball more. Like they're set up to absolutely crush teams on the ground, but they don't do it as much as they could or maybe should. But it's hard to argue with the results. Like they still have the number 1 offense in the NFL by most season-long metrics, even if you could argue that Miami's is actually better when they have their starting quarterback out there. I don't think you'll see a big pivot for them just because the Chargers' run defense stinks. I think they'll just run their offense and come what may. This was an irritating. A lot of times you're like, I don't really see why the line is what it is, and then you get other games where you're like, that's exactly where it should be. This is one of those games where it feels like 5.5 is exactly where that line should be. If it was 6, nah. If it was 5, nah. 5.5 is exactly where I don't want it to be.
The other last year's game in Los Angeles was another incredible game. Went to overtime, right? That was the Brandon Staley went for like 7 fourth downs and, should have kicked 15 field goals and they would have won, but he didn't. They go to overtime and Travis Kelce with a walk-off touchdown. So the Chiefs won by 6, exactly 6 last year in this matchup. So point is, these teams continue to play really good games. It's one of those, sometimes in division games, they're lopsided. Like Aaron Rodgers against the Bears, he's going to crush them every single time. That's been the history there. Other times division games are just hard fought and close. That's usually what happens with the Chargers and Chiefs. But even if the Chargers have their receivers back, and I'm not sure exactly if Mike Williams or Keenan Allen are going to play. They're just practicing. They're just getting back. Williams with an ankle, Keenan Allen with a hamstring. They're both questionable. Gerald Everett, questionable with a groin. DeAndre Carter, questionable, the receiver with the ribs. I just feel like the Chargers are too depleted here.
Yeah, it's basically Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
Like that's the offense at this point. Going up or trying to make it work with an offensive line that may be completely overwhelmed by Chris Jones up the middle.
And if you watch the Sunday night game against the 49ers, Chris and those guys were talking about how the Chargers were talking about how you have to attack down the field, right? You have to attack this Niners defense and take chances down the field. And they did that early on. And then you go back at the end of the game, and it's still 5.7 yards per attempt. It's still this limited passing attack here. I'm going to say the same thing about Herbert that I say about Derek Carr every time the Raiders play the Chiefs. You got to be aggressive. Got to attack down the field. The Raiders' best game that they played this year is when they were just uber aggressive trying to beat the Chiefs, trying to play the underdog role. I think Brandon Staley is capable of doing that, but the offense has to be able to do that. It's not just going for fourth downs. It's trying to flip the field. You got to tap into Herbert's ability here. And they just haven't done it this season. So, but it's tough with no receivers too.
Yeah, I mean, it's very tough. So I think the line is where it should be. I think the Chiefs are favored even on the road by a pretty good margin for a good reason. They're the better team. They're less depleted with injuries. It makes sense. The only thing making you think maybe not is, it's a division game. The Chargers do have Justin Herbert. There's enough there for them to not get blown out. But I think Kansas City should win.
Yeah, I would probably take the Chiefs in this one if I wasn't just flipping a coin. Mahomes is the MVP of the league, I think, so far. War has him as the most valuable player by a significant margin. He's playing really good ball, and he's doing it without Tyreek Hill, right? I mean, that was the big question coming in. He's been spreading the ball around, and Travis Kelce's still outstanding, but the Chiefs' offense being as efficient as they are with their moving pieces at receiver has been really impressive. So
this has moved. It's gone out to 6.
It is 6 now.
Now it is. Changes everything.
I would still take the Chiefs. Let me flip my coin here. Heads is the Chargers. Tails is the Chiefs.
I am taking Kansas City to cover, even if 6 means I probably shouldn't.
It's tails.
What did that mean?
Chiefs. Chiefs for me. That's good. That's right. So the 2 times the coin has gone where I
No,
where
I'm going to
go.
listen to myself. I said 6 changes it, so 6.
You did.
Chargers. Chargers are covering 6.
This website that I'm using has had 37 million flips.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 51% tails, 49% heads. Over 37 million flips. Keeps the stats here.
That feels like a flaw in the the flipping system, no?
Fix the algorithm. I mean, once you get to 100 million, it'd probably even off. 37 million, it's a small sample size, you see?
Yeah.
It's not there.
See, I think,
50.9% tails, 49.1% heads.
It feels like it should be closer than that. Like, whatever, flipping a coin 10 times, you could get anything. But flipping a coin 36 million times, if it's not coming up 50-50, surely your flipping mechanism is broken.
Fix the algorithm, guys. What is this website?
You need to find a more balanced coin flipper.
Flips IMU?
Or just flip a coin.
Flipsamu? Got a lot of ads on here, too. But yeah, tails seems to never fail over here on this website. Or at least, only fails 49% of the time. All right, what's the next game here? There we go. New York Jets. Oh, wait. So I'm taking Kansas City on my flip.
Yeah.
And in Steve's head. So this will be great. Me and the coin flip in tandem. New York Jets at the New England Patriots. Patriots favored by 3.5. New England is 5-4. Jets are 6-3, right? Do I have that right? Don't have all the standings in front of me. These teams just played a couple weeks ago. New England's coming off a bye. Jets, last time we saw them, beat the Bills. Seemed like a big upset at the time, but now the Bills are terrible. They lost again. But the Jets are sitting here in tied for second. Really, they're ahead of the Bills in the AFC East. Mm-hmm. Can the Jets keep it up?
Yeah, another game that we saw, and this one much more recently. Like the narrative coming out of that game was Zach Wilson was a disaster in the second half, collapsed, the Jets lost. that kind of masked or hid or just sort of distracted from the idea that Mac Jones basically did the same thing on the other side. Remember, he threw one of the most ridiculous interceptions that got negated because John Franklin Myers got done for roughing the passer, right? So that, like, his worst play maybe in the game got taken off the board, and you sort of forgot about the general bad play overall because Zach Wilson was even worse. But all the talk that we've covered extensively on this podcast of how bad Zach Wilson is under pressure, the same thing is true for Mac Jones, maybe slightly marginally less egregious. But Mac Jones has been horrendous under pressure this year.
Did you see Dan Orlovsky's breakdown of their offense? We joke about Dano.
Patriots offense?
Yes. We joke about Dano on this show because, on Mondays he brings the heat with some takes on Monday, so we have to, push back sometimes. But he does do some good film breakdowns and everything. And he just showed a few pass plays where Mac Jones and his receivers, just the timing in the offense is not there. Mac Jones is at the top of his drop. He's waiting to throw, and receivers aren't even close to out of their breaks. And I thought it was just an astute point because when you talk about this offseason in New England, they supposedly revamped this offense. It was all supposed to be new. It was all new verbiage. And then they get into training camp, and every report from the media, we always say take it with a grain of salt. But every report from the media is like, man, this offense looks terrible. Timing, execution, everything's off. And here we are halfway through the season, and the only few times where the New England offenses look good has been about a game and a half of Bailey Zappi under center, and the few times where they just ran the ball like crazy, right? The few times like the Lions game where they just executed and ran the ball effectively. So they're coming off the bye. Don't know if they've revamped things. We saw Mac Jones as a rookie play much better ball than he is right now. We know that he's accurate and is a good decision maker. Or he's capable of that. We haven't seen any of that this season. So curious to see what they do in this game. But it's certainly one where the Jets corners, you got Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, they've been outstanding this year. Patriots, historically, their offense attacks the middle of the field really well. It feels like that's where they need to win in the pass game, run the ball. Off of that, why are they so loud in there?
I don't know.
Can you hear them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people listening can't, though, so it's probably not a great...
No, we just break the fourth wall all the time here. That's what we do. So anyway, yeah, it's a huge game for New England again. Like every game, I feel like Mac Jones is like fighting for his job and his future, and he just hasn't played well at all this season.
No, I mean, neither of these quarterbacks have. The difference being that Zach Wilson has actually played reasonably well when he's been kept clean. Mac Jones has played badly across the board, which is definitely problematic. When you look at it, the Patriots, I think, are now first. Am I right? Top three, something like that, in
EPA.
Pressure rate. No, pressure rate is a defense. Like, they've really climbed that table in recent weeks. The Jets are still top 10, but they have the least blitz-happy team in the NFL now. They've overtaken Buffalo or undertaken them in terms of how little they blitz. So they have one of the best front fours in the league. The Patriots bring as much pressure as pretty much anybody in the league. They're third in pressure rate now. The difference is the Jets' offensive line is a mess, because of all the injuries that they've had. So you kind of look at it. It's two very similar dynamics, I think, where both quarterbacks are going to struggle against pressure. Both teams can get pressure a lot. But one offensive line is dramatically better equipped than the other to prevent that happening. So for those reasons, I feel like the Patriots have the advantage in this, and it's more likely that they cause problems for the Jets offense than the other way around.
I want to talk Zach Wilson for really quick here. He's against the Patriots. He's played two plus games, got hurt in one of them, right? 6 turnover-worthy plays, 7 interceptions in 2+ games against New England. We're just 2 games ago, Zach Wilson, as you mentioned, played poorly. I was making the joke, it felt like every pass that he attempted was like right next to the sideline. For whatever reason, he's not making throws from the pocket. He's either under pressure or he's vacating a clean pocket, whatever it is. And then the last game we saw 2 weeks ago against the Bills looked nothing like any other Zach Wilson game in his NFL career. He gets rid of the ball in 2.3 seconds. The Jets had a scheme prepared to offset the Bills' pass rush. It was almost half of his passes were screens, RPOs, play action, right? Things that are protecting him, right? And getting rid of the ball quickly. And Jets fans are seeing this, and they're like, wow, that was the best Zach Wilson game we've seen. They felt good, right? Basically because they weren't relying on Zach Wilson to drop back and make plays. They were basically saying, we're going to predefine the reads, you're going to get the ball out of your hands, and and that's it. And even at the end of the day, still missed a couple throws, gets sacked and fumbles and the whole thing. So it wasn't the best Zach Wilson game, but it was an effective Jets passing attack game. And what I want to know is those games were a week apart, right? And the Jets are coming off their bye. Is that what it's going to look like again? What they did against the Bills, which is get rid of the ball quickly, screen heavy, RPO heavy. Don't let the Patriots pass rush, as you mentioned, being number 3 in the league. Don't let that get to Wilson again and protect that offensive line. If they do that again, it's not about a Zach Wilson thing. It's about that whole offense making life easier for the quarterback and creating a effective pass game.
Yeah.
If they can do that, I kind of like the Jets here, but I don't think they're going to be – I don't like the matchup against New England's defense. Given
right. I was very surprised they were able to do that against Buffalo at all. But I think that Buffalo is a more likely team to be able to achieve that than it is against the Patriots, who are much better at disguising and confusing your pre-snap looks or your pre-snap reads. So ultimately, this is one of those games where we talked yesterday about how no amount of analysis and pregame prep and debate can make up for random-ass turnovers. And this is a game where both quarterbacks are random-ass turnover prone.
They're prone.
So,
yes.
which one is going to have more of those plays, essentially, is going to determine this game.
All right, so I would probably lean New England at home here.
Same.
I'm going to go home team is Patriots, tails is Jets. It's tails. Going Jets. It's the first time I disagree with the coin flip.
Coin is saving you, maybe.
Well, yes. Save me from myself. All right, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at PrizePicks. You can download the PrizePicks app, go to prizepicks.com, sign up to play daily fantasy sports. It's really an awesome concept here, Sam. You're going to have your we'll tell everybody your picks for the week here. It's daily fantasy. You make entries based off of player projections. You're going higher or lower, more or less here, and you have your pick for the week here.
Yeah, it's a very cool concept. It's a great way of playing DFS. You can play it with the NFL, but you can play it basically just about any other sport you want. Created a little bit of a parlay. Daniel Jones with more passing yards. Russell Wilson with more passing yards, as much as that feels painful to do. The yardage hasn't been that terrible for Russ. It's just everything else. And then Jonathan Taylor with less than 80.5 rushing yards this week against a defense that is still pretty good despite the narrative of, oh, no Jordan Davis, no
Philly
run defense. So that's my parlay. And then you hit all 3 of them, or you can select the flex play and only have to hit 2 out of the 3.
I like it. So you got some flexibility there. You pick more or less based off that prop. And first-time users, here's the deal here. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code PFF1. So promo's PFF1. You get 100% instant deposit match. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code PFF1. You're going to go to prizepicks.com or download the PrizePicks app. And at sign up, you get an instant deposit match up to $100.
So here, before we get into the next game, we should have done this from the start, but you need to put where you would have gone in the column next to your actual pick, because I need to know next week
how much better the coin is.
Yes, I need to know how many times the coin saved you from yourself, or conversely, how many times the coin screwed you. Either way, this is a piece of information we need going forward.
Do you see the column to the right?
Yeah,
the
I got it.
column to the right
Perfect.
will be Steve's picks.
Perfect.
All right, let's go San Francisco at the Arizona Cardinals, but it's really at Mexico.
Yes.
And it's Monday Night Football. Let's fix the spreadsheet. Niners favored by 8 here. Kyler Murray's still not necessarily going to be a go here with his hamstring issue.
Yeah, I mean, this line has moved a lot. That feels like an indication that this will be another Colt McCoy game, not a Kyler Murray game. Is that the way we're reading this? He's unsure. It's a day-to-day deal. It's always going to be a day-to-day thing while he's dealing. But this has to be a Colt McCoy game, right? Isn't that the way this is all going?
I think so, but isn't just perception about the Niners so much higher than the Cardinals too?
Yeah.
The Niners are they started slow last year too, and then end up in the NFC Championship, and they're
Vegas
one of the
seems to
hottest
hate
team.
the Cardinals. I mean, they were underdogs by 3 points against the Rams, who stink at the moment last week.
That's true. That's a good point, and that was probably a Colt McCoy thing, but McCoy is also the last couple of years.
But remember, that was the Matthew Stafford was as questionable as Kyler Murray for the entirety of the buildup. So both quarterbacks were questionable, but they were questionable concurrently. It's not like there was ever a period where we were expecting Colt McCoy to be going up against Matthew Stafford. Like, they were both either anticipated to be backup quarterbacks or not, and the Cardinals were the underdog by 3 points.
Colt McCoy now has 4 starts for the Arizona Cardinals. He's 3-1. We mentioned last week it was 2 out of 3 were solid games, at least statistically. One absolute stinker last year against the Panthers.
Yeah.
But McCoy is, listen to this, completed 85% of his passes his first start, which was against the Niners last year, 80% of his passes against Seattle in his third start, and then last week he was over 70%. In an air raid offense, right? That's actually what you're supposed to look like in an air raid offense, right? You're taking all this dink and dunk and underneath stuff. You're taking what's there. And the thing that is missing is, as you might expect, is the big-time throws, right? You don't have McCoy with his ability to flip the field the same way Kyler Murray does. You don't have the running attack that Kyler Murray brings to the table. But McCoy runs this offense pretty effectively. Got away with some stuff against Seattle last year, but I'm just saying, like, the stats show a guy that's just going to keep the chains moving, complete some passes, and run the air raid pretty well. So, like, I wouldn't underrate Colt McCoy just because he has run this offense effectively.
Yeah, so it's a lot like, remember, we were talking about the bet we have with the listener that said Daniel Jones will be within a couple of grading points of Russell Wilson this season. And we were only looking at it through the lens of how close can Daniel Jones jump up to Russell Wilson's baseline of play, not what if Russell Wilson's baseline of play collapses by 20 points.
Yeah.
So here we're sort of thinking about it, well, even a good version of Colt McCoy can't really get anywhere near a good version of Kyler Murray. But what if Kyler Murray starts playing like Colt McCoy, which is kind of what's happened this year? Kyler Murray already has more turnover-worthy plays this season than he had all of last year. He's got 2 more already. The percentage has jumped up by 1.5 percentage points, essentially. But here's the big one. He has gone from leading the NFL in big-time throw rate, right, 8%, which is a monster number, to all the way down to 2.1% this year, which is almost a full percentage point lower than Tua over the first 2 years of his career when he had the lowest big-time throw rate in the NFL.
It's by far the lowest of Kyler's career.
But it's like, it's not even, it's a different quarterback. We've gone from the most big-time throw prone,
likely.
Yeah, what the hell is the word I'm looking for there? But the most likely quarterback to have a big-time throw to the least likely this season. So you're not comparing Colt McCoy to last year's version of Kyler Murray. You're comparing him to this guy who's floundering in an offense that isn't really functioning and has a PFF passing grade of 63, who's passing for 6 yards per attempt, who has numbers like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, essentially.
Are we not talking about that enough? I know Kyler's probably not playing. I don't want to. There's a chance he could play still. And last week,
my point being, I don't think there's a big difference if Kyler Murray or Colt McCoy is playing in this game.
The way they're playing this year, but should this be a bigger story, man? Like, we spent the whole offseason joking about Kyler, like he got mad on Instagram, and then he's deleting the Cardinals, and then we're talking about his video game prowess, and then there's the contract, and he's got to study 4 hours a week, and then they pull it, and all this stuff. I mean, the Cardinals invested in Kyler Murray. And the fact that we're sitting here halfway through the season and it's like, in this game, this one game this week, Colt McCoy might be as good, if not better, of an option than Kyler Murray, the guy you just invested in. Last year when Kyler got hurt and Colt McCoy came in, we never said that. We never would say that. We're like, Kyler's playing at a different level. Can Colt McCoy right the ship, keep the ship afloat for a couple weeks? Sure. And he did. They went 2-1. But this year it's like, man, Kyler Murray isn't bringing the big plays to the table that he should. Is that the offensive line? Is it the fact that they didn't have DeAndre Hopkins for the majority of the season? I mean, there's a lot of what ifs and questions there, but man, it's not looking good so far early in the Kyler Murray contract.
No.
But McCoy did a good job last week, as we mentioned, distributing. DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore had about 80% of the receiving yards for the Cardinals. If he can do that again, I think they can hang with the Niners.
Yeah, I think they can as well. I think this is kind of an overreaction to the idea that, you've turned to the backup quarterback, therefore. But, remember the NFC West is like rock, paper, scissors. Each one of the teams only beats one of the others and loses to the other one, Yeah. The Cardinals are the team that beats the 49ers.
It's so weird.
The 49ers are the team that beats the Rams every time, but the Cardinals do well against San Francisco over the last couple of years. So between that and the fact that I don't think Colt McCoy necessarily downgrades the position for them, 8 is a lot of points to be giving up.
The thing with McCoy, though, as much as I'm praising him, he did have that absolute dud in his second start last year against Carolina. That's the thing. In any given week, it's
I think that's
Colt McCoy's arm. He still has arm strength issues. He has to be perfect as far as timing and accuracy goes.
I think that's the big risk with not risk. I think that's the big drawback with backup quarterbacks. It's not that they're not capable of reasonable starting performances. It's that you're probably only ever 3 games away from them looking like Nathan Peterman.
Never know when that's going to show.
Right, and that can happen the first game they play, or it can happen the 5th game they play. But it's coming. And the longer you have to play this guy as a starter, the closer you are to that inevitable performance. And when they play like that, you just have no shot. So if Colt McCoy doesn't have one of those games, I think they cover the 8. If he does, forget about it. They're getting blown out by double digits.
Here's the other part about it for me. The Cardinals' defense has this slight difference in, the EPA allowed overall isn't bad for the defense, but the grade itself is not great. The Cardinals' defense still doesn't feel good, but they create big plays. They've had pick sixes and all these defensive touchdowns and all that stuff. I think that's the difference in this game. It comes down to, for me, Garoppolo on the other side. As much as we've complimented Miami and Mike McDaniel, shouldn't Garoppolo be doing the same thing statistically with this offense? These guys are all healthy with Debo and Kittle and all these guys.
Oh, there was a stat, I think it was on the broadcast, that said that Jimmy G,
I saw.
I think it was 10-2 in games where he hasn't thrown a touchdown. That's the most.
Just a funny stat.
Isn't that the most tin cup stat in the world? The Kyle Shanahan statistic that his starting quarterback is 10-2 in games where he doesn't throw a touchdown.
It was a dropped touchdown the last week, as you mentioned too. It's just touchdowns are silly sometimes. The actual stat.
Yeah,
touchdowns are good.
I just think that's a very Kyle Shanahan statistic.
So, again, it's always interesting seeing the Niners offensively, Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey and their split backfield.
It needs to be about 50-50 according to Shanahan.
What does he think Elijah Mitchell's trade value is?
The logic of that statement after trading a lot for Christian McCaffrey boggles my mind. It's like you just traded a giant amount of capital for this running back.
By committee. A committee
for
guy.
This running back. So the logic can only be that this guy provides an incredible amount of value to an offense above and beyond the value that a random-ass 6th-round running back brings, right? Because that's everything you've seen for this offense for years, decades, if you want to go back to Mike Shanahan, is that you can grab a running back in the 6th round, you can throw him out there, and it'll work absolutely fine. So the only logic to the Christian McCaffrey thing is if you believe he's so good that the value he brings above and beyond that guy is incalculable. To then come out and say, so they should about evenly split their time. What? How does that make any sense?
By that logic, I would flip Elijah Mitchell for all those picks that you just traded for McCaffrey. Get them all back.
Or just get another 6th-round running back without having to trade the equivalent of a top 10 draft pick and make them 50-50.
Well, Elijah Mitchell's good is the thing, which is why the trade at the time was curious.
Or you're trying to claim that Christian McCaffrey being that amazing only functions if he's spelled to the degree of 50-50, which is a bizarre claim to make in the first place.
Which, on one hand, wasn't the way he was used in Carolina. Remember, we had to...
Stanford, by the way.
Yeah, true. We had to debunk the myth that, this workhorse back has to be, 230 or whatever. McCaffrey was playing 95% of snaps for Carolina for a while. But, of course, he did run into injury issues. So is that what Shanahan's saying? Basically, we want to keep him healthy. But, again, it goes back to, do you give up that many players for a guy that's injury prone?
I cannot square the logic of trading what you traded for Christian McCaffrey and then claiming that he should split time roughly evenly with Elijah Mitchell. That makes zero logical sense to me.
Games in Mexico tend to have a lot of points based off the 2 games off the top of my head. Chiefs, Rams.
You think altitude equals points? Is that what we're dealing with?
Possibly.
Or smog? Don't they have a lot of air pollution problems in Mexico City?
Yeah, it's definitely the smog might be harder for defensive
because Denver's
players
at altitude as well. There's no points there, so it can't just be altitude. It's got to be altitude plus air quality.
The defense can't diagnose in altitude or in smog.
Smog
is what it is. So we'll see a lot of points, obviously. What would I take here?
I am going with the Cardinals. I think that line is an overreaction to no Kyler, and I think it's closer than that.
Cardinals are officially the home team?
Yes.
So I'll say heads is the Cardinals. It's flipping. Heads. I'm taking the Cardinals like you. I would probably go Cardinals too just because of so many points. So everybody,
this is a phenomenal
Sam,
system.
Steve, and the coin are all going Cardinals here.
This is incredible analysis.
Let's get to the Thunder Snow.
Yes.
Cleveland Browns at the Buffalo Bills. Bills favored by 8. Now the NFL, there's a we're not meteorologists here, though I went to school with a whole bunch of the meteorologists that are on like New England TV and stuff. I should get there. We should have interviewed them. We should have gotten their input.
Like by chance, or like you went to some kind of meteorologist?
No, I was friends with them. Like my classmates.
Okay.
Classmates at UMass Lowell are like all over the airwaves. 2 of them, at least.
Oh, okay.
2 of them.
You made it sound like it was a much larger collection.
Just 2 of them. But there's only so many jobs, and 2 of them are from people I went to school with at UMass Lowell. I should have gotten their input, but I haven't talked to them. But thunder snow, they say because it's actually not winter yet, it's warmer, so the lake effect just gets like tripled.
Crazy.
And we're going to have some thunder snow, up to 6 feet of snow, up to more snow than Devin Singletary and Nick Chubb's heights.
3 to 6 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Still not as much as big as Josh Allen, though. He can't cover Josh Allen. But the snow supposedly is supposed to stop by Sunday morning. And, you can clear off the field and the whole thing.
God, it's a lot of work.
But it sounds exciting.
Yeah. Forget the field. Like, that part is easy enough. Can you imagine having to clean all the seats?
No.
That's an open-air stadium. By the way, that stadium is the coldest I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
The game against New England in, like, December the 27th one year.
I think we decided it was the 09 game.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was 08, but somewhere around that.
08 or 09. Was Brady or Castle playing?
I think it was Brady.
Then it would be 09.
09. Yeah, okay. The wind was unbelievable, and that's an open-air stadium, and it's like a horseshoe. So we were at the end of the open end of the horseshoe, and the wind was just like howling in off the Urals, Yeah,
yeah.
The coldest I've ever been in my life. Because that was back when the seats were just like one long metal bench. And you think, well, you've sat in metal before and eventually your body heat warms it up. But not when it's that large. It just sucks the body heat out of 50,000 people and you all freeze to death. Horrible experience. So, this will be different because it's just snow, not freezing cold and wind.
Thunder snow.
Thunder snow.
It's going to snow.
So who does that help?
I think any weather helps the underdog.
The underdog. Why?
Theoretically, it helps the underdog because it makes the game more conservative. Now, I saw somebody mention this. On the other hand, there are these historic games like the Patriots dynasty always seem to perform well in the snow. They beat Tennessee 59-0. They beat Arizona 48-0. Those were games where the Patriots and the Steelers, maybe to some degree, they kept passing, right? They looked at it like, well, the pass rush is non-existent. You've got no footing. Everybody thinks you're going to run the ball like crazy. We're actually going to throw it. And Brady and the Patriots, they beat Chicago one year too. Absolutely wrecked a really good Bears team in 2010 in the snow. So if the Bills could come out and chuck the ball around and have success, but if both teams become more conservative because it's the snow, we got to run it, this and that, then I think it's the underdog, right? That it tightens the game up, it makes it shorter, and the whole thing.
So I think this actually helps both offenses. I think it helps the run game generally as a concept. Like I think the idea of Cleveland's offensive line plus Nick Chubb, I think they get helped by a snow game. But I don't think it helps you stop Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen is a giant athletic freak show. You telling me it's easier to slow him down with a lot of snow on the field? I think if anything, it's a bigger problem. And I also don't think it necessarily limits him passing the ball. Like you said, all those examples of when good teams can still pass in the snow, I think it probably slows down the pass rush. So I think it makes it harder to stop a guy like that. And I don't think it necessarily causes that many problems for receivers relative to DBs. If it's slippery underfoot, it's slippery for both, and the receivers know where they're going, so it's less of a problem for them. So I think both offenses are made better by the weather, whatever it is.
There's a lot of studies out there, though, that extreme wind actually does affect the game more.
Yes.
And I've made
wind is the biggest problematic weather you can get in against football. Wind, then extreme rain, then a big gap, and then anything else.
Yeah, snow's different though. I mean, I think light snow is doable, but like heavy, like if you're playing in a foot of snow, that's actually on the field, that does change things.
The snow game.
There was that one week in 2013 where there was like 5 of them across the NFL. I think Philadelphia had it, and Baltimore, and a few other.
Eagles-Lions, right?
Eagles-Lions was ridiculous. I remember I was great in that game that day. That was the Nick Foles year. But there was like 5 games across the NFL that were just insane in the snow. Isn't Shady McCoy incredible in the snow? Isn't he like Mr. Snow Game?
He was that was that game, right?
I mean, that's part of the strategy here. I think somebody should sign him.
For this game?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like he could still contribute. So it's an 8-point spread here for the Bills.
Yeah.
All this said, the NFL is talking about maybe moving the game. I had forgotten this, but
hell.
supposedly they did that a few years back.
To hell with them.
Yeah, I agree.
We deserve a giant snowpocalypse game.
Because you know what they would probably move it to like Detroit or something and be like, oh guys, go play in a dome.
I don't understand.
Go play in a dome, it's fine.
As long as the conditions are not unsafe, then what is your problem? Like, this is football. Football gets played in the winter. You play through weather.
Is it the fans? Is it for the fans? I mean, that's not helping the fans moving the game to a different city.
I just articulated how I was sitting in a stadium dying of hypothermia when it was just cold. Nobody talked about moving that game. Like,
True.
Deal with it. It's snow. What's the worst that could happen? Well, no, what's the worst that could happen? How bad could it be if you bundle up and, keep yourself from dying?
Somebody asked me what the coldest game was that I've ever been to. I'm like, 50. Like, I don't go to cold games. You kidding me? I'd rather be on my couch.
I wish
coldest
that was
game I went to was like a high school game or something, and I still regret it.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting in the cold watching a game, so good luck
Yeah, it wasn't
if you're
fun.
going to this one. So, again, I don't even know if the snow is going to be a factor. So we could also assume, let's just pretend that the snow is not a factor.
Well, I think what it does, like my favorite bet in this game is the over. Like the over-under is 42.5. I think
it's so low because of the snow.
Yeah, I think bad weather helps both offenses, actually, ironically. So I would hammer that over. And as it happens, the PFF app likes that bet as well. So that's my favorite one for this game.
Oh, PFF app. Go check it out. Download the PFF app. Get all your betting suggestions ahead of time. We've got letter grades on all of the potential bets. So you know the ones to avoid, the ones to maybe take a look at.
And critically, that's one where both I and the app agree, because if you were listening to just me, you would be doing not great. And if you were listening to just Steve, unless you were picking the opposite of what Steve was doing, you would be...
Let's just stick to the game here, Sam. You
would have lost your ass. That's all I'm saying.
The Browns, snow or no snow, this could be one of those games where they rely on Nick Chubb. You could run on this Buffalo defense.
Yeah.
Also feel like Buffalo. Do they need to start pivoting away from relying so much on Josh Allen?
I don't know how you can do that.
Their backs aren't bad. You can run the ball more.
I think they can run the ball more, but I'm just not sure that I don't think that's helping. Like, I'm not sure what you can do to take the pressure off Josh Allen to the point where he's not throwing the ball to Patrick Peterson.
I think it's that mental break that quarterbacks talk about. Think about the Zach Wilson example that we just talked about, too. Zach Wilson against the Bills only had to really drop back and read the field like 8 times. Yeah. I'm not saying you want to do that with Josh Allen. But if you just have a certain percentage of the passes, you have a few more screens, a few more RPOs, a few more mental breaks, right? Because that plays into the mentality of Josh Allen. You don't necessarily have to take away the 3rd and 2 QB sweep plays that he's always converting or whatever, but give him more mental breaks, fewer straight drop back passes, fewer read the field type of plays, a few more mental breaks, a few more handoffs, screens, RPOs, that whole deal, so that when it is crunch time, he doesn't feel like, oh, I'm Josh Allen, it's all on me. I got to make these plays. I got to throw the ball into the end zone for the game-winning touchdown instead of the game-tying field goal, whatever it might be. That has to be part of it.
I think he's going to feel that anyway, though, and he should do. Like, he's the best player on their offense, with all respect to Stephon Diggs. Josh Allen is the best player on that offense. He's the guy the offense is built around. He's the guy getting $45 million a year. Like, the thing should be built upon him, and it is. And by and large, that's resulted in pretty good things. But in recent weeks, he's been making classic boneheaded mistakes, and that's problematic. I struggle with the idea that the mental break by handing the ball off an extra 5 times a game is significant. I mean, does he not get a mental break while the defense is on the field? Like, that he can't recharge then? He actually needs one during the drive, an extra time every drive? Like, that can't be a thing.
Now I'm the one doing the touchy-feely stuff, and you're the one poo-pooing it.
Yeah.
There's something to it.
I don't know that there is.
He's 80% of the offense. He doesn't have to be.
Doesn't he?
I don't think he does.
I think he kind of needs to be, and that's why they paid him $45 million a year. What they need him to do is just not make glaring mistakes at the wrong time. Like, you're telling me that if he has 3 more mental breaks, quote unquote, i.e. hands the ball off 3 more times against the Vikings, then he doesn't drop the snap on his own goal line.
I'm not equating it 1-to-1.
Okay.
I'm saying the totality of everything's on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And you've got a pretty good, Devin Singletary, James Cook, 1-2 punch.
But you're still going to need that. You can't. So the mental break thing is not. It's not taking it off his shoulders when you get to crunch time. You're somehow saying that by having those mental breaks, he'll be more, refreshed and recharged and not ready to throw the ball away when you need him.
I'm saying it differently, right? The Tom Brady stat that I love, where he's the only, he's when you throw 50 plus times, his record is in a whole different atmosphere. Brady has 1/4 of the wins in NFL history on games where quarterbacks throw 50 plus times.
At this point, he's also got like 1/4 of the starts in NFL history by all the quarterbacks.
Fair point. But Brady, he's capable of doing that because he doesn't make those mistakes, right? That's his game. You can go and trust Brady to go make 50 good decisions. Right? Spread it around, go make 50 good decisions in this game. Most quarterbacks aren't equipped to do that, right? So when you put them in that position, hey, go drop back pass 45 times, run it another 10, and oh, by the way, don't throw it to the defense, don't fumble it. Like, over time, most quarterbacks are going to end up making those mistakes. So you just take some of those off his plate. You don't put all that pressure to do that. It just feels like this game, where Cleveland's defensive tackles are among the worst in the league, if not the worst, you should be able to run the ball a little bit and have a game where it's not just Josh Allen. It's a Cook Singletary game more than it was, right? It's still Josh Allen, but it's maybe only 70% instead of 80%. That's all.
Okay.
Bills are a better team. They're going to win.
Yeah,
I would take Buffalo by the 8.
I think the Bills win, but Cleveland covers 8.
This will come down to the generic if Cleveland doesn't turn the ball over. If Brissett doesn't throw it to Buffalo's defense, which is good, then they're hanging in.
I just hope we get a lot of snow. That's all I'm rooting for.
Rooting for
a
snow.
lot of snow. I want
Schefter
another.
Did say that. So the 2014 was the last time the NFL moved a game. They did move it to Detroit. There's no need for that.
Get out of here with this moving the game stuff because of snow. Like, deal with it.
Heads is Bills, tails is Browns, and it's going to be heads. So Steve and the coin are both taking Buffalo.
Steve and the coin. Coin hasn't saved you from a lot of games yet.
This could be my week.
Maybe this will be the week you hit 500.
Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this was going to be the Sunday Night Football game, but thankfully it's now just a 4-whatever game. Cincinnati by 4 against Pittsburgh. Played back in week 1. Pittsburgh won in overtime.
Right. Doesn't this feel like this will be a good game?
Yeah, this is one of those division matchups that's usually close, right?
Yeah. Like, I'm not sure why you would. I mean, I get it. The Kansas City versus the Chargers is a fun game as well, but I wouldn't have been in a massive rush to flex out of this. I guess Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are not the best markets in the world, but I think this will be a bit of a grind for the Bengals. Number 1, TJ Watt is back, and he is transformative to that defense. Number 2, they won the first game. Number 3, they were a team with a pass rush problematic enough to just annihilate that Bengals offensive line early in the season when they ran up against a sequence of really good pass rushers. Joe Burrow was catastrophic under pressure that first game. But also, without Jamar Chase, and because of how the game against Carolina went, I think absolutely the Bengals are going to come in this and, like, let's repeat that game plan. This will be the Joe Mixon offense. We're going to run him. We're going to pass some dump-offs to Joe Mixon. That's going to be how the offense gets rolling. And I think Pittsburgh will be way better at stopping that than the Panthers were. I think the Panthers should have been way better at stopping that than the Panthers were, but they weren't. So if Pittsburgh slows that down and forces them to do something, anything else, I think the Bengals offense is going to go back to looking like it did the week before the Panthers game, which was not great. And then it comes down to, like, can Kenny Pickett have another game where he doesn't make a big mistake?
I think the Bengals, I don't know how much to look into home road splits, but the Bengals are scoring 11 more points per game at home than they are on the road. You know, they have been a completely different team, and I think that's probably part of one of the reasons that this game's closer than you'd expect record-wise, right? Plus the Bengals, we talk about their inconsistency a ton and how they'll play up or down to their competition a little bit. It does feel like it'll be a good, close game. Pittsburgh's defense also looked fantastic last week. TJ Watt came back at 37 snaps.
He changes everything.
But, like, week one was at home, and that game didn't make any sense, right? I mean, Joe Burrow did he have 3 official interceptions in that game? But he had one negated, too. What was his official line here? 4 turnover-worthy plays, 4 interceptions against Pittsburgh in week one. I don't think that's happening again.
No.
I mean, the Bengals did everything that they could. Missed field goals, turnovers. I don't think that's happening again. So the Bengals should win this game, but they have been a different team on the road. At Dallas, at Baltimore, at the Jets, they played well. At New Orleans, they played well. But at Cleveland, that was when they laid an egg on Monday Night Football. They have not been the same team on the road.
No, they're not the same team on the road. I don't think they're the same offense without Jamar Chase, particularly if they can't just annihilate the run defense with Joe Mixon the way they did against Carolina. I think this Bengals offense is going to be a bit of a grind this week. And again, like if Pittsburgh remember that the Steelers were a lot better last week blocking. Remember, we gave the explain the grade thing on Dan Moore Jr. just collapsing his side of the line. All of a sudden there is some running room for Najee Harris and the rest of the run game. That coincidentally leads to a Kenny Pickett game where he doesn't have multiple turnover-worthy plays in it. So that is a big unknown. Like, can they replicate that part of what happened last week? But I think the Bengals are not going to find it easy on offense. And the Steelers might be better equipped on offense as well. So I think the Bengals do win, but this feels like a field goal to me.
Bengals still top 10 in EPA per play allowed defensively. I don't think we might not give the Bengals defense enough credit for the work they've done the last couple of years because the offense is there's so many storylines with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in the Bengals offensive line and all that, but the defense has been quietly solid the last couple of years. In the Steelers offense, I don't know, man. They just, even when they have good plays, they don't score points. They don't sustain drives. They were better last week, but they don't put points on the board. I don't trust the Steelers offense yet.
No, I don't either, but I think this ends up being quite a low-scoring grind.
I could see the grind. I would definitely take Cincinnati, though, even to cover the 4 on the road.
Okay, I'm taking Pittsburgh to cover, but the important question is what does the coin say?
So the coin's going to take heads will be the Steelers, and heads it is. Coin's taking Pittsburgh. I'm taking Cincinnati.
Another one with a coin is saving you, maybe.
Potentially. We shall see. Tell people about the PFF app while I'm typing these in.
You should go get the PFF app. One of the best things we have on there is the Smart Bets feature, where it'll highlight with a letter grade the bets that the data likes and thinks you should take and where the potential edges are. There's also a ton of exciting stuff coming down the line in terms of player props and giving you some insights from the PFF data that not just tells you what the good bet is, but explains why. What parts of the data are being surfaced to explain like why that is a good bet to take and how you should win yourself some money. Plus, all the content stuff that I write. So, like that stuff, share it with people so that I stay in a job.
All right, sorry, I had to tweet to the NFL that we want a snow game. Schefter keeps talking about, they're going to move it to Detroit, and then the Bills would be in Detroit on Sunday and on Thanksgiving, 4 days apart, and this whole thing. Like, don't go to Detroit. Just play in Buffalo.
Oh, well, now that you've weighed in, that should...
Well, I tagged the NFL on Twitter.
That's what I'm saying. That
goes directly to Roger's desk.
To Roger's desk.
Yes, and he will respond accordingly,
yeah.
I'm sure. Chicago Bears at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons by 3.5 at home here against the upstart Bears. Upstart.
Yeah.
They haven't won many games, but they feel so much better in Chicago.
Isn't it weird? Like, you get a lot of teams where it's the opposite, where they're actually playing okay, but they haven't won. So, it's, but the Bears are sitting here with Justin Fields getting MVP talk. 1-3 in the last
Every
4
week
games.
we're over here like, oh, the 7-2 Giants. Oh, they found a way again, but they're not that good.
Yeah. Same
right?
with the Vikings. It's like, they're not as good as their record.
Soft 8-1.
Right.
But are the Bears the best 3-6 team in NFL history?
In NFL history. Yeah. Probably not. I can't think of it's not a record I tend to keep tremendously close tabs on over the years, Where does this team rank in the pantheon of 3-6 teams over the last decade?
I mean, I could tell you the worst 11-0 team in history. That was the 2020 Steelers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's an easier thing to stick in your memory as the relevant teams in that regard.
Sorry, I misspoke. The Bears are 3-7.
3-7.
Apparently, they haven't had a bye.
So this is,
I apologize. I've with some teams having buys. I forget sometimes if teams are 3-6 or 3-7. I've made that mistake a couple times.
Okay.
I called the Rams 3-7 this week, and I would just like to apologize to Rams fans that you don't have that 7th loss yet. It's 3-6. The Bears, though, I overestimated you. You're 3-7.
Okay. This is the 2 least effective pass rushes in the NFL, going up against 2 offenses that refuse to pass the ball.
Yeah, both teams, we use that true drop back stat, right, to isolate offensive linemen, take out play action, take out moving pocket screens, the whole thing. Both of these teams by far the lowest in the NFL in just true passes, true dropbacks. So I think that's going to be a fun game. That's going to be our Bears analysis every week. It's going to be a fun game.
Well, yeah. So they're 2 difficult offenses to match up with now because they are unusual. You've got neither one of them wants to pass the ball in this world of passing 24/7, and the pass game is everything, and quarterbacks are all important, and they still are. But these 2 are leaning on them as part of the run game. Obviously, Justin Fields has become one of the most dynamic rushers in the NFL, regardless of position. But Marcus Mariota has been a big part of allowing everything in that offense to function, even if the last thing we saw was him going full Jameis and trying to launch the ball to a safety from lying horizontally on the floor. Ridiculous play.
That was amazing.
And I genuinely, they must be getting pretty close to throwing Desmond Ridder out there and seeing how much worse it could be.
I don't think they are, though. I've heard that a bunch. I don't think they are.
But this, Marcus Mariota right now is starting to remind me a lot of Marcus Mariota at the ass end of his Tennessee tenure, where it was there's only so much more of this you can watch before you just put the backup out there and see what happens.
I think the point people are missing there, though, I mean, if we're in week 15, maybe. The point that's being missed here is Mariota is a part of this offensive identity because
can't Ridder be that as well?
No, because they're running 15 tight ends out there and running the ball a million times, and Mariota's got 340 yards on the ground. He's on pace for about 600 plus yards. That's part of this offensive identity is his running ability.
Right.
And them taking the ball out of his hands as a passer so that they can run with Patterson, Huntley, and Algier. That's part of their identity. They want Mariota as part of that.
But why can't Ridder do that?
Oh, he doesn't run like Mariota.
Ridder ran a 4.5.
He doesn't run like Mariota.
He might not run like Mariota, but he can run enough that he can still do that stuff. And by the way, he might not go full Jameis and try and launch the ball from the flat of his back.
It was a sack, man. He was down.
Not through want of trying. That's one of those plays where, the result almost doesn't matter. It's the fact that you attempted that in the first place is a massively problematic thing. I honestly don't care what happened to the ball. When that popped up in your brain and thought, yeah, let's give this a whirl. I no longer care of the result. I am simply interested in the process that led you to that decision, and I believe that's fundamentally too big a problem to overcome.
Fair. For perspective, you mentioned Mariota. So when he was benched in 2019, he had a 64 passing grade. This year he has a 63 passing grade. When he got benched, he had 8 turnover-worthy plays versus 5 big-time throws, so more turnover-worthy. This year, twice as many turnover-worthy plays as big-time throws, 14 to 7. So if you do look at certain numbers, PFF grade, turnover-worthy plays, that type of thing, similarities to the time that Mariota was benched on a 2019 Titans team that eventually went to the AFC Championship with Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
Just for perspective.
You know what their comparative 40 times are? I already told you Ritter ran a 4.5, 4.52 for him.
Yeah, Mariota's probably slower or something.
No, 4.48 though. Basically,
Mariota plays fast.
He plays fast.
He plays fast.
Yeah.
That's really the password, huh? That's great. That's funny.
I just say I acknowledge what you're saying, that he, as an impressive athlete, is an important part of this run game. I simply saying that I don't think the difference between him and Ritter athletically is enough that it prevents you doing all that stuff. And on the other side of that scales, you might have the fact that he won't try and go full Jameis, and he might actually be able to pass the ball a bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm intrigued by what Ritter can do. I also don't think Mariota came out of Oregon, and he was a runner, right? He was a pass first, but when you thought he was going to add a lot of value as a runner, I don't think you had that idea about Ritter as a player, but who the heck knows? That was Josh Allen and Justin Fields both came into the league and became excellent runners, and that became a huge part of their game. Maybe it ends up like that for Ritter. So Ritter watch might be on, but for now it's Mariota and it's Fields, and there's going to be a lot of running in this game.
There will be. I don't think either defense is tremendously good against the run, in addition to not being good against the pass.
High-scoring, run-first affair?
Yeah, and kind of a fun game to watch because of it. Like, they are unusual offenses. Both quarterbacks are paramount and at the forefront of what they're doing. Both quarterbacks are still capable, if not eager, to have at least one ridiculously bad play in there as well, of tossing the ball to the defense. Justin Fields may not have gone full Jameis, but he did just pitch the ball to a safety. So, this will be an entertaining watch.
All right, I think I would take Chicago as underdogs here. They're so hyped up, man.
Chicago is underdogs.
Yeah. They're getting 3.5, right? Am I
Yep.
reading that right? All right, heads is Atlanta, tails is Chicago. It's tails.
It's now 3. Update.
It's at 3?
Only 3.
Oh, that changes everything.
Changes everything.
Now it might be Atlanta. I'll take Chicago. And so will the coin.
Oh, okay. I'll take the Falcons.
All right, biggest spread of the week, Carolina Panthers at the Baltimore Ravens. Baker's back.
Wow. Baker's back, huh? And the line goes to 13.
Showed some fire headbutting his teammates.
What the hell was that?
He said he does it all the time.
Why?
He's a fiery individual.
Put a helmet on.
I mean, that would explain his regression over the last 5 years.
It would explain a lot of things.
Right?
I
mean, I just want to go back to our pre-draft process. That was not a piece of information I was privy to.
True.
The fact that a helmetless Baker Mayfield consistently headbutt his helmet-wearing teammates.
Yeah, like we don't know what exactly the correlation is between that and play, but it's a piece of information I'd want to have if I was debating whether a guy was my future franchise quarterback.
We now have one data point, and we have a quarterback who peaked in years 1 and 3, and got worse in years 4 and 5. So there could be diminishing returns from the headbutting dudes with helmets on.
I mean, depending on whether you count each headbutt as a separate incident, that could be several data points.
Yeah, and we've had to do that before in concussion studies here.
Sure.
PFF. Anyway,
is he still the best quarterback that the Panthers have available to them, regardless of what PJ has done so far this year?
It's another one of those where I think week in, week out, yes, but man, PJ Walker's high end has looked really good.
Yeah, and
that's a couple weeks of
I mean, okay, his sample size is
it.
smaller, but his baseline is higher as well. He's got a 60 grade passing versus a 54 for Baker, 64.5 overall versus 52. Like, he's been better.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the Panthers' offense looked terrible early in the season when Baker Mayfield was quarterback, and then they started to look better. Did they look better because they made a quarterback change, or were they just going to naturally progress? Was the offensive line going to get better? Was Ben McAdoo going to get better, pairing with their personnel and all that stuff? Panthers have kind of looked better since they got rid of Christian McCaffrey. That's a thing. Just saying. But I don't know if it's natural progression of the offense, or if it was P.J. Walker actually making a big difference in most of the games when he wasn't throwing the ball to the defense.
Yeah, the other element is that their offensive line has improved a lot from the start of the year. The first 2 or 3 weeks, Ike Ekwonu, the rookie left tackle, was getting wrecked. And then he went on a run where he gave up like 5 pressures in 7 games or something. Ridiculously good performance. Then Thursday night, the most recent game, he was flagged 4 times, a bunch for holding. just kept screwing up drives by penalties. He actually, I don't think, gave up any pressure, or maybe gave up one, but it was the penalties that was killing him that week. But all of a sudden, like, that offensive line for Carolina is another one. There's 3 or 4 offensive lines this year that have taken giant leaps up the offensive line rankings from preseason or from earlier in the year. And when you look at this group, you know, Ike Ekwonu has a good grade overall, and it's a lot better if you strip out the first couple of games where he was pretty rocky. Brady Christensen is probably the weakest link, and he's been okay. Bozeman has upgraded center when he's come in versus Pat Elflein.
Bozeman a revenge game.
Yes. Austin Corbett has been pretty good at right guard, and Taylor Moton is the best player on that offensive line, I think, when all things are equal, and has been playing better as well. So all of a sudden, like, they've done it. They're another team that successfully crept back toward average. So that's different to the way it was, at least for the first 3 weeks of Baker Mayfield starting. Now, does that explain why Baker Mayfield was playing like crap? No, but it didn't help.
Right, I agree. So that'll be interesting to see as Carolina develops. I think the other big storyline here is we've discussed Baltimore adding pieces back, right? Tyus Bowser's back. Roquan Smith traded for. They've got guys coming back off injury. They've got guys that they've added back into the mix, and they haven't blown a 10-point lead in a few weeks, right? I mean, the only thing that's changing our perception of Baltimore is whether you call it fluky or their own terrible flaw defensively, or as a team, that they blew 3 10-point leads earlier in the season against Buffalo, against Miami, against someone else. We're a couple bad blown leads away from discussing the Ravens as the best team in the AFC. And now they're adding pieces defensively. I want to see how they come together on that side of the ball.
And as Nick Wright said on yesterday's show, Baltimore is the team that scares him as a Kansas City homer.
Right. As a homer on that side of the ball. And I think for Baltimore, just having Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey and not having, like, they've had injuries this year, but not having that ridiculous run of injuries, particularly in the secondary that they had last year. They've had some. Marcus Williams is out and the whole thing, but they still have good players at every level of the field.
By the way, so you kind of made a veiled reference to this with the Christian McCaffrey went, and therefore they improved. But Deontay Foreman has been pretty crazy over the last month of the season. He's got essentially 4 games, but one of them was 7 carries for 23 yards where they got in a hole early against the Bengals and essentially abandoned the run game. So take it out, right? Take it out. Doesn't count.
Throw it out.
Strip out that game, and we've got 118 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, and then 130 rushing yards and a touchdown. Like, he has been an absolute workhorse for this team. And remember, Deontay Foreman is huge. He's 6 foot, 235 pounds. Like, he was one of those monster Brandon Jacobs-style running backs when he came out of Texas years ago, and it never quite worked out for him in Houston or Tennessee. And then all of a sudden, he's the lead back in Carolina behind an offensive line that has improved, as we talked about before. And, like, he's moving the ball.
Sounds like you want the Panthers to keep it close here.
I think I do.
Feisty Panthers.
That's a lot of points.
It is. In Baltimore, are they a team that you trust to blow people out?
Not really. You want a fun stat?
Yeah.
J.C. Horn has given up 81 yards in coverage this season. 6 cornerbacks gave up 81 or more yards last week.
Wow, that is good.
Yeah.
Second-year player coming off of injury last year, looking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, looks like you're going Carolina.
Yep.
It is a bunch of points. I think I would still probably lean Baltimore. I don't know what to make of Carolina every single week, though. Them in Atlanta, they've played each other a bunch, and I just can't stand making picks on either of them. But I'd go Baltimore. Heads will be Baltimore. Let's flip it. It's heads.
I love this, an irrational amount.
I'm trying to, if I get enough heads, I can change the site stats here.
You probably need quite a lot of them to offset 1 percentage
So Baltimore
point.
and Baltimore.
I haven't run the math, but whatever 1% of 36 million is.
Yeah. All right, Philadelphia Eagles at the Indianapolis Colts. We got the Colts getting 6.5. Eagles favored by 6.5 here, which is curious because Nick Sirianni has a loss and Jeff Saturday does not.
Well, that's why the line has moved 4 points towards the Colts.
It was 10.5?
At some point. I'm not sure when it. So that was at opening. I don't know when opening was in this.
Opening had to be before anybody saw that the Colts could actually like call a play on Saturday. Has to be.
Yeah, well, it was definitely then, but like how far back does it go?
Like the second the first play call came in, and it's like, all right, the Colts will be okay.
Because technically, aren't there lines on these things like in preseason? You know?
Yeah.
Is that when it opened? When is
no?
when is
Open's
open?
Probably the real open's like right after the games on Sunday.
We should really.
But we
ask
might track
somebody
it
who
2 weeks
knows this
before.
sort
I
of
don't know,
thing.
because you could get lines 2 weeks ahead too.
That's what I'm saying. So we should really ask somebody who has any idea what they're talking about, as opposed to us just guessing.
No, I'll just keep guessing here on the show.
Well, okay. To be where have we got here? This line was 9 on the 13th. Yeah.
4 days ago.
Right.
I don't know what changed there. So two things for me. I think the perception of both teams is fascinating to me, right? I think I mentioned this on yesterday's show, so forgive me if I'm going to repeat for the millionth time. But everybody puts their power rankings out every year, and you see the people that put their every week, and everybody's like, oh, what do we do now? The Eagles just lost. Who's the new number one? It's like, there doesn't have to be a new number one, right? Like if you thought that the Eagles were the best team going into Monday Night Football, and they lose to the Commanders, in a league where there's really not a clear-cut number one, it's okay to keep the Eagles at number one in your power rankings. It's okay. You don't have to completely change what you think based off the one game that happened to be in primetime that we all watched together. Because the competitors for the number one spot in the NFL, who is the best team? It's the Chiefs. Well, the Chiefs lost to the Colts earlier this year. That was a thing that happened this season. We're power ranking this season. Mm-hmm. They lost to the Colts, a team that just hired Jeff Saturday from ESPN. That happened this year.
Slash high school.
I mean, the Bills, right? Now, they've lost 2 in a row, so they're going to drop even more. But, like, those are the teams that are competing for number one. So the Eagles just lost, so I'm not going to overreact to the Eagles and their loss. I also think, is our perception of the Colts way worse than it should be, too?
Yeah. Well, no. So I think the perception is kind of where it should be, but the reality is actually they're not far off the playoffs. I think they have zero chance of having any kind of ultimate success at the end of this year.
Like impact in the playoffs
right.
or any of that
Even if
stuff,
they somehow stumble their way ass backwards into the playoffs, they're going to run up against a good team and get annihilated and go home. But the Patriots currently occupy the 7th seed with a 5-4 record. The Colts have a 4-5-1 record and just won. So, it's as doom and gloom as it's been. Like, there are a lot worse teams out there record-wise and outlook-wise heading forward. Like the Colts, particularly if there's any kind of substance to a former offensive lineman, Jeff Saturday, coming in and all of a sudden the offensive line looks viable for the first time this season. Like, if that's actually a connection as opposed to just a coincidence, because that may be the single biggest problem that the Colts had working for them this season, is that their offensive line went from good to dumpster fire, and nothing functions while that's happening. If that gets back, if they become another Carolina or Chicago or Miami, where their offensive line creeps back toward average and becomes okay, then all of a sudden Matt Ryan functions again. I mean, I talked to you, like, Matt Ryan's not going to play outdoors again until like January.
That's a huge deal, as you know.
Yeah, for Matt Ryan. So if Matt Ryan starts to function again, and all of a sudden you can pass the ball, and all of a sudden Jonathan Taylor works because he's running behind a line that's opening some holes, the Colts are not dead and buried.
Yeah, that's my thing, right? I think we certainly identified the issues with the Colts, right? We saw it on Thursday Night Football against the Broncos, where they miraculously won 12-9 in overtime. But, I mean, any sort of pressure was just a disaster there. They lose to the Titans pretty badly, 19-10. They blew a game against the Commanders. But that was with Sam Ehlinger. But that was the thing, too, right? Like, a lot of our perception about the Colts was not only the offensive line was trash, but then you put in Sam Ehlinger, who clearly wasn't ready to play, and it felt like, well, this is like the worst team in the NFL. But when Matt Ryan's in, even though he hasn't been playing well this year, they shouldn't be the worst team in the NFL. We kind of saw that last week. No. My question, though, is that, like, was the offensive line that much better? Season-high pass blocking grade. Was it season-high? Close to season-high run blocking grade. Were they just better, or did they just play the Raiders?
That's the thing, right? So as much as it's very easy to say they hired a, perennial All-Pro, great Ring of Honor, center, offensive lineman who was a great player back in his day and obviously understands offensive line play. Therefore, their offensive line was way better. But they played the Raiders, who have a bad defense, who have a team tackling grade that's 31st in the NFL, who have a run defense grade in the 50s. Like, the Raiders are not good up front. So if there was a team where your offensive line could right the ship and look okay, and by the way, the Raiders' best player, or their only viable pass rusher, was going up against a pretty good offensive lineman for you. Like, what, maybe the guy that's been best this season in Braden Smith at right tackle. So it made sense for that to be a good game for the Colts offensive line before anything else happened. So I would be cautious of assigning all the credit to Jeff Saturday. But, maybe it is a bit of column A and a bit of column B.
So then at 6.5, again, if you set this line just 2 weeks ago, it's undefeated Eagles against a Colts team that just got wrecked in one of the worst offensive performances of the season against the Patriots. It's like, man, this line should be 14. But are we overrating the Colts and underrating the Eagles? And that's all coming to a head right now this week. All that said, Eagles, Dallas Goedert's now on the injured reserve. They're starting tight end. That's a big factor, right? Part of the Eagles offense being so good, it's like good receivers on the outside, one of the best tight ends, good running game, running quarterback. Pick your poison. Figure out how to stop us. Losing Goedert does hurt.
It does. It also feels, I don't know what to feel about that play. Remember, that was the fumble that was a big part of that game, but also the egregious missed face mask call by the officials that they then looked at replay.
That's the play on which he got hurt?
Yeah.
I did not know that part.
They can't change it on replay because you can't add a penalty for face mask on replay. It's not a reviewable call, right? So despite it staring you in the face as you're trying to work out if the guy was down or not, once the ball was fumbled away, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to sit there looking like an idiot because you didn't call it the first time around and be like, yeah, we probably should have called that as a face mask. And by the way, the guy is injured now because wrenching his face mask towards the floor drove his shoulder into the turf, and now he's hurt. And it feels like there should be some consequences to that somehow, but I don't know where. Like, I hate the NFL's fine system as a concept. I think it's egregious to start charging people money for things you've already penalized them for, Like, that was a 15-yard penalty. You've already been punished. Why do you need to take $15,000 off the guy?
I sent you that message the other day. Could you imagine if real-life jobs had a fine system?
Right. But, like, it feels like that, that should have some kind of public consequence for the officials that didn't call that.
You could, this is when you start to open the box, right? You could say, hey, look, if you see a face mask on the replay, you're allowed to overturn that. But then it's like, how far?
100% should be allowed to add
but
things
then
like
you
that
go,
back
how
in.
far do you go? Because when you slow it down and a guy's pinky touches the face mask
I have a
before it
fix
grabs
for
the
it.
collar, then it's like, well, that's what happened with pass interference.
Yeah.
In theory, it's like, review pass interference. Great idea. And then what happened is people started reviewing every offensive pass interference. Is this a pick? Oh, it's all a pick.
Here's the
Lose
fix.
those plays.
You ready for it? Here's the solution. It's entirely initiated by a sky judge. So you need one of those for every game, right? The sky judge can buzz down and add a penalty in as long as he gets it done before the start of the next snap, right? Because if you can't tell in 30 seconds if there's an egregious missed call and hit the button, it's not bad enough that you need to fix it. That's my solution. So the sky judge watches every play, and if there's something like that shows up, it's like, oh, we missed a really obvious face mask call here.
Yeah.
Officials like, face
I'd
mask,
be all
15
for that.
yards. As long as it happens before the next snap, you can get it done. And then people will go, oh, well, they'll just run to the line and run another play. If you can get that done consistently, fair play. That's what happens now to avoid to try and avoid the replay. If you can get that snap off before the dude buzzes down, you have at it. You got away with one. Good for you. But that's the way to fix that, because the idea that we can be looking at that call and not be able to do anything about it is stupid.
I'd be fine with that. I think that's good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Just buzz down when you need to. There was a missed because the face mask, it's 15% of the football field now that you got rid of the 5-yarder, right? It's a 15-yard penalty and an automatic first down. And whether or not you call that completely changes the complexion of the game. And it did negatively for the Eagles the other night. So that's the thing too, right? A little bit of turnover luck. The fact that every single run by Washington went for 3 to 4 every time. Well done, Washington. I mean, I'm just not going to overreact to the Eagles. That said,
Goddard is a big loss for them, though.
Goddard's a big loss. And if teams, I mean, it's not a blueprint game or anything like that, but when you have a good offense, if you can get 3 or 4 per carry every single time with the Jonathan Taylor against the Eagles and keep Hurts and company off the field, yeah, that's a good way to go if you can execute that.
Like,
so
the Eagles essentially throw the ball to 3 different players. It's A.J. Brown, it's Devontae Smith, and it's Dallas Goedert. And all of a sudden, you've taken one of those 3 out of the lineup. And the drop-off between Goddard and the next guy is 51 targets to 15 over the course of the season. And all the next guys are wide receivers or running backs. Like the next tight end they have with any kind of targets is Jack Stoll with 9. So they need to figure out if somebody else can pick up that slack, if somebody else can step into that role of Goddard and, do some kind of Goddard impersonation over the games that he's missing. If they can't, I mean, the offense needs to change. It has to literally shift for other players to pick up that slack. And it's entirely possible, but that's an unknown going into a game like this because we haven't seen it yet.
Gus Bradley defense, you'll see a lot of one-on-ones with A.J. Brown and corners. You might see A.J. Brown versus Stephon Gilmore. Great matchup, but I think it's an A.J. Brown game. He'll be one-on-one. Heads is Colts. It's tails. I'm going Eagles. I would also take the Eagles, so coin and I.
Yeah, I'm going Eagles.
Feeling it. We're all taking the Eagles to cover the 6.5. We're not buying undefeated Jeff Saturday. We're saying the Eagles are.
Well, I'm not buying a 4+ point swing in the Colts' direction just because they beat the Raiders.
Honestly, you know what? It depends on when you call the open. If the open was 2 weeks ago, that's Ellinger for Ryan.
No, but as I said, you
said
Monday.
It was on Monday? Man, yeah, that's weird. All right, Rams at Saints. We got 4 more games to crank out here in the last 30 minutes or so of the show, unless we finish early. We'll see. Rams at Saints. This looked like a better game at the beginning of the season. Saints by 3.5 here.
Yeah.
Against the depleted Rams. Cooper Kupp, of course, on injured reserve, so he's out. Matthew Stafford should be back from concussion protocol. I didn't know last week where the concussion came from. I heard a little bit. It was Matthew
It was like
Stafford's,
after the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Stafford's wife. It's Kelly Stafford. Yeah. She has a podcast where she was basically saying they're at home, and he was just like, I don't feel right. Yeah. Like my brain doesn't feel right. And so she was emotional, pretty upset, trying to tell this story. And that's why he didn't go into concussion protocol until the Tuesday of last week. So it wasn't just one hit. It was this cumulative effect or whatever came out of that game where he just wasn't right on Monday, and by Tuesday he gets into the concussion protocol.
Yeah.
But it sounds like Stafford's going to be back here this week, still behind a depleted offensive line without his favorite target.
Yeah. I mean, look, no Cooper Kupp in this offense. The offense has been Cooper Kupp so far this season. Like, nothing else has been functioning. The entire premise of the system has been getting the ball out of Stafford's hands quickly, get it to Cooper Kupp, and hope that he can make something happen because there's no time to get anything else done. Now, Cooper Kupp's not there. Like, what does the offense even do?
I wonder. There was a time when Stafford lost Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
And the addition by subtraction type of thing. Not that the offense is better, but it may, Stafford he was forcing the ball a little bit less.
No.
Maybe it's an Allen Robinson step up situation.
The difference being that the Detroit Matthew Stafford minus Calvin Johnson wasn't working from behind the worst offensive line in the NFL. Because my premise, I subscribe to that theory that Matthew Stafford became a better quarterback when he had to play the game more honestly than simply drop back, find Calvin Johnson, heave the ball in his direction, or play it honestly, but when in doubt, find Calvin Johnson and throw him the ball. Like, I think that ingrained some not great habits into Matthew Stafford, and when Calvin Johnson was taken out of the equation, he had to play the game more honestly and actually work through a progression and determine where was the right place to go with the ball, which I think generally helps the offense overall. The Rams can't do that now because they don't have time to work through a progression and figure out where the ball's got to go. It's like the ball has to go here now or I'm getting buried. So that made sense for Cooper Kupp, working from the slot 55, 60% of the time. He's in some space anyway. It's very easy to get the ball out of your hands and get it to him. If he's not there, I mean, what the hell? You don't have time to wait for Allen Robinson to uncover down the field or run his, in-breaking route at 12 yards or whatever. That's not on the table. Is it Tyler Higbee all of a sudden is the alpha in this offense simply because he's working the middle of the field and he's the next highest target getter? Like, do you somehow craft a bigger role for Skoranek? Does he go from like fullback gimmick guy to you need to be the number one receiver now because nobody else is?
They need Van Jefferson. You just need guys to step up.
There's going to be a lot of hyperbole surrounding this offense heading into this game because of the way their season has gone so far. Usually, I think you fight back against hyperbole and say, look, we're going over the top. It's not that bad. This might be that bad.
That's why I'm going. That's why I'm fighting back against it. That's why I'm going the other way. I think the Rams, the silver lining here is this season that appears lost. They're only 3-6, not 3-7. That appears lost. Maybe they start to learn more about a Tutu Atwell or some of their younger receivers and players that are going to be what?
I'm sorry, it's the worst offensive line in the NFL. The system doesn't function. No Cooper Kupp, but don't worry, you can have a look at Tutu now.
That's right. Ty Nsekhe, one of my favorite swing tackle in the NFL.
Yeah,
in part
like
because he's my
5
age
years
and
ago.
still doing it. He's probably he might be getting the start at left tackle here. I mean, that's where I'm at.
This feels a little bit like, you ever do like a debate exercise where you have to argue something that's basically unarguable?
Is that what I sound
Your
like?
task is to try and defend the indefensible. You got 20 minutes to prepare. Let's see how you do. And now you're trying to argue that Ty Nsekhe is going to hold up the O-line long enough for them to target Tutu Atwell down the field.
That's right.
Don't worry, it'll be fine.
Against the Saints pass rush, that's very inconsistent.
I mean, that's true. That part's, yeah.
I'm liking the Rams in this one.
What?
Yeah. Liking the Rams in this
Why?
one. Because backs against the wall. They're going to go into the dome and chuck it around. And, yeah. It's going to look better.
Okay.
For the Rams. It's going to look better. Because the Saints are just as bad right now.
Are they, though?
It is tough.
Have you seen – so
we could point to this issue with the Rams. The Saints one's harder to point to because I don't think Andy Dalton's playing that poorly. He's making throws for the most part. They're getting some bad turnover luck. The defense, it's like 1 week they look great, another week they look terrible.
The Rams have their number of points put up by the Rams since week 4. So week 4 was at San Francisco, 9 points in a 24-9 loss. The week after that, 10 points in a 22-10 loss. Then we got 24 points against the Panthers. Then 14, 13, 17. This offense stank even with Cooper Kupp in the lineup.
All right, this is going to be my scoregami game. What's the scoregami going to be?
Do I need to pull up the scoregami chart that I learned how to read
That's going to take you a week and a half to pull that up.
No, it's got to be the first thing on Google. Otherwise, I wouldn't have found it. All right, I got it. What do you want? What do you hit?
Let's see.
Now I got to remember how to read it.
Like 18 to 14. Has that been done? That probably. Almost certainly.
18
to 12.
No, that's been done. 18-11.
18 to 11.
Scargami. Or 18, an 18-18 tie. The ties are generally in a pretty good spot.
I could see an 18 to 18 tie. We'll throw that as a maybe, but I'll say 18 to 11 Rams.
Or 18-9.
No, 11.
Okay.
It's an 11-point game for the Saints.
Now remember, the rules of the scoregami is if you guess it correctly, you get 10 games.
10 wins. 10 wins. This is my scoregami game. Give me the Rams 18 to 11 because I didn't know that stat that you told me that the Rams have the third lowest pressure rate in the NFL.
Despite having Aaron Donald on the field.
Despite having Aaron Donald. That is difficult to do.
That's amazingly difficult.
Leonard Floyd's on pace for his worst pass rushing grade since 2018.
There are people out there that are like, oh, Aaron Donald's no longer the best pass rusher in the NFL. Like, Aaron Donald is still Aaron Donald. You go and watch his tape, he is still the same guy, but he is literally being given more attention than any other pass rusher in the NFL. His double team rate is off the charts. I haven't seen triple team rate, but I imagine that's the highest of anybody because you can see quite a lot of them on tape, and that doesn't usually happen to anybody. He is being eliminated from games because nobody else in the Rams is doing anything. Donald has twice the number of pressures of the next best guy on the team, who has twice the number of pressures as the next best guy on the team. Like, their third highest pressure player, like Jalen Ramsey, is in the top 5.
Floyd has 16 pressures. He's got 4 games with 1 or 0 pressures. That's an issue.
So Donald has 31. Floyd is the next guy. Bobby Wagner is the next guy with his blitzes. Jalen Ramsey has the same number of pressures as Greg Gaines and Ashawn Robinson, who are full-time defensive linemen.
Man. Yeah, it's not good. All that said, I think the Rams defense is capable, right? I mean, I think they're capable of putting together a good game. I like the Rams here. Saints I can't figure out. I think Dalton will play worse at some point as well. He's due for a stinker.
He has been remarkably consistent. At least in terms of performance.
The Saints kind of seem like the Steelers, where they're like, the quarterbacks aren't playing horribly, but they're not putting points on the board. They're not putting it all together outside of a game or two.
Dalton's grade has been between 65 and 79 every single week he started.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do.
It is. Saints pass rush ranks 25th in the NFL. Rams they're gonna look better.
The Rams, no, they're gonna be bad and they're gonna lose.
Yeah, certainly possible.
Saints are gonna.
But I painted this picture in my head that they're gonna win 18-11. So
no, I heard that. I don't quite understand how you get there, but fine.
Where'd the podcast doc go? Did I close the document?
It's hard to tell from my vantage point.
It is. Where's my coin here? Heads is the Saints. It's heads.
So the coin's saving you from yourself.
The coin's going to save me from the picture that I painted. Podcast doc.
What was it, 18 to 11?
Yeah, 18-11 scoregami. Steve's taken Steve's taken the Rams. Yep, there we go. Beautiful. Detroit Lions at the New York Giants. Giants favored by 3 here against the Lions, who have won 2 straight. Lions are hot.
The guy with the bet that they're going to make the playoffs is looking smarter now than he did at the time.
Yeah.
Still not.
As 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I'm still not saying it's likely, but it's more likely now than it was then.
What are you looking for in this one?
This is a game where neither team defends the run particularly well. So I think particularly this will be another big Saquon Barkley day, who is having a great season for the Giants. I think generally the better the day he has, the easier it is on everybody around him. Daniel Jones has been maybe better this year, and certainly Brian Daboll is doing a great job and all those kinds of things. But the bigger a day Saquon has, I think the better for everybody concerned. It just makes Jones's life easier. And I still don't think that many people trust Daniel Jones as the quarterback here. So, Saquon can go nuts. Detroit is allowing 5.3 yards per attempt on the season as a defense. That's huge. But I also think Detroit's offense can get something going as well. They should have a pretty decent day.
Every time the Giants play somebody, I always like to check the other quarterback when they face the blitz, right? And you've got Jared Goff. There's my perception of Goff or 0 blitz and all that stuff. Remember, he's had some disastrous numbers against 0 blitzes. That's not necessarily Wink Martindale in the Giants game this year. It's not so much 0 as it's just blitz a lot of single high type blitzes and all that stuff. This year, Goff's numbers, 58 overall grade against the blitz, not great, but his passer rating's 94, so the stats are not necessarily matching the grade, but he does have more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws against the blitz. I mean, I think that potentially determines the game here. When the Giants are bringing heat 40-50% of the time, how does Goff react to that? Do they have answers? I think that goes a long way to determine in this one.
And for context, 58 is bad. I mean, it's 30th out of 39 quarterbacks.
Yes, thank you for that. Add in that proper context.
Number 1, by the way, Andy Dalton.
Don't blitz Dalton.
Yeah.
And the Rams
Dalton,
might need to.
Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. So it's just like everybody thinks,
You never, ever, ever blitz Patrick Mahomes.
Or Andy Dalton.
So that's the thing I'm looking for. Goff against the blitz, against this Giants team. And it's another one like we said last week. Hey, Giants, if you're that good, if you're really a 7-2 team, take care of business against the Texans.
Yeah.
Take care of business as a front runner. And they have to do the same thing now as a favorite against the Lions. Would it surprise you? What?
I'm waiting to be surprised.
Would it surprise you if I told you that the Giants were number 7 in the league in EPA per play offensively? With their run-heavy approach, they don't have the most explosive passing attack.
Yeah, I guess so.
In the year of the run game,
the year of the run
here
game.
of 2022, we're playing football like it's 92 here. Giants are number 7.
Yeah, they've been doing a great job. I'm the more it goes on, the more I'm buying into the Giants. Not so much as contenders, but I think they've got a real shot of making the playoffs, which I didn't think was even on the cards heading into the season.
So matchup-wise, you get to see Andrew Thomas and Aiden Hutchinson one-on-one.
Somebody tweeted, I think it might have been Nick Wright, actually, that said, doesn't it feel like Tampa Bay is they're gonna stumble their way through the season, win the division with a 9-8 record, and then host Daniel Jones in the playoffs? It's like,
yes.
This is why the panic stations over Tampa Bay. There's a lot of ways this season can go where it still ends up quite successfully, for them. They have a lot of time to get themselves even vaguely on track.
I mean, even Aaron Rodgers is like, hey, the NFC's wide open, and he's not lying.
Yeah, I mean, less so for you than other people, but sure.
I mean, they were 4-6 in 2016. They're all pointing to that. They ran the table 2016 without Christian Watson. Now they have Christian Watson.
Without Christian Watson, they did. At least,
I mean, starting last week, the guy's going to score 30 touchdowns over the next 10 games, including the playoffs.
That would be another guy whose bet would be correct.
I'm saying the Christian Watson better that he's just going to break out in the second half of the season. I forget when we set that cutoff point, but I mean, if Watson really does become the superstar in the second half, I'll give that dude whatever PFF
whether or not we took the bet, we should give him one.
Yes,
but just a reminder, that season, Jordy Nelson was there catching 15 touchdowns over the year.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, we get breaking news here.
Do we?
The Eagles, who earlier this week signed Linval Joseph, are now signing.
Where are you getting this?
Ian Rappaport with a blue check mark. The Eagles are signing Ndamukong Suh to a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
They did sign Linval earlier in the week, right? Too?
They certainly were working him out. Did they actually sign him?
I just saw one Ben Solak quote tweet about it. But the Eagles are reacting to Monday Night Football. So as I said, nobody overreact. And the Eagles are like, no, we will. We're going to sign every defensive tackle that's on the street because we're not getting gashed.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of people that are pushing back on this idea of actually their defense is no worse off without Jordan Davis in the lineup.
I've pushed back.
And then in the last 48 hours, they signed 2 run-stuffing nose tackles.
No, they need that nose tackle. They want the nose tackle. And I'm intrigued by Suh not playing 900 snaps a season and playing 20 snaps a game like a Jordan
Finally,
Davis.
You are going to get the answer to what happens when Ndamukong Suh is given a situational role, because even if the Eagles were putting him in as a starter, it's a situational role.
He might have that Jordan Davis 85 grade on 20, 25 snaps per game.
Yeah, I mean,
Suh
the
could
Eagles,
be a nice pickup here.
They rotate defensive linemen anyway. So even if he came in and was a day one starter, quote unquote, for them, he would be in a much more limited role.
We don't know what type of shape he's in.
Doesn't matter.
Probably not playing this week, but
they don't have a defensive lineman. So they're the most snaps from any of their defensive linemen. Hassan Reddick's got 414, and Fletcher Cox has 404. So 400 snaps over 9 games is what the maximum number for this defensive line has.
And Suh averages 900 to 1,000 every year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting to me. All right, so Detroit at the Giants. Giants favored by 3. Where are you going with this one?
I'm buying into the Giants.
All right, I'm not. Steve's taking Detroit. Loser. I'm buying into the Lions. Turning it around. Heads is the Giants. The flip is up. It's heads.
Nice.
Coin's going Giants.
404 snaps, by the way, ranks 59th. So essentially 60 defensive linemen in the NFL play more snaps than the Eagles' top guy. 404 is the second guy. 414, did I say, was the second guy? 53rd. 53 people have had more snaps than that.
Great.
I'm just saying that I'm reinforcing my point that the Eagles rotate as a matter of course. Therefore, Ndamukong Suh will be in the rotational role you wanted to see him in for the last 8 years.
I'm looking forward to it. Las Vegas Raiders at the Denver Broncos. Broncos favored by 3. I can't forget Mike Kliss when he was on here a couple weeks back talking about how the Raiders own the Broncos. So Broncos favored by 3 here.
In the Disappointment Bowl.
Oh, is that what we're calling it?
Yeah.
They used to call these the toilet bowl.
Yeah. That works.
Those games.
Yeah.
The 2 coaches who have been discussed as being fired in their first year as coach, Josh McDaniels and Nathaniel Hackett.
Only one of which apparently the owner can afford to fire.
You
got to assume the Waltons have enough cash to dropkick Nathaniel Hackett out of the building if they wanted to. As far as I'm aware, Walmart's doing pretty well.
Our preseason thoughts that the AFC West was going to be that loaded.
Yeah.
Not so much. Broncos are sitting here at 3-6. The Raiders are 2-7. I saw James Palmer tweet per NFL Research. The 1946 Steelers.
What a team.
We all remember them. The year that they were the last team to be first in points allowed defensively, but last in points scored offensively.
Of course.
And the Broncos currently are on pace for both. Best points allowed, worst points for. Fascinating year for the Denver Broncos.
Fascinating. You've given me no additional information about that season. I'm disappointed by that.
Oh, how good were the 1946 Steelers?
They were 5-5-1. They were third in the Eastern Conference, I guess. You know how many teams were in the league that year?
I don't know, 8?
10.
10.
10 games.
They're
Or 10
5-5-1.
teams. 10 teams. The New York Giants led the East with a 7-3-1 record. The Chicago Bears led the West with an 8-2-1 record. And that was your championship game.
They didn't have overtime back then, did they?
No,
A lot
I
of ties.
don't think so. But anyway, 5-5-1. That's about it. That's all I got.
So what I'm gleaning from that is if the Broncos hold course here, they should creep back toward 500.
Yeah.
Maybe the Broncos are better than we think at 3-6.
I wouldn't go that far. The Broncos defense is really good. Like,
They
first
really
and foremost, give them credit for that because that defense is absolutely phenomenal. Now, it's phenomenal in the context of NFL football in 2022 where one breakdown is 7 points and, it's really difficult for a defense to completely carry a team the way it may have been possible in decades past because it only takes one mistake somewhere and it's immediately a touchdown. And now you're just in too big a hole because your offense is never going to score again. But their defense is really good. And as bad as their offense has been, like they are still generally able to move the ball sometimes. Like the red zone offense has been a train wreck. It's been a disaster. Russell Wilson has obviously been massively problematic. They've got a lot of injuries as well. They're an offensive line that's gone in the other direction.
We did have a Broncos fan say we haven't mentioned their injuries enough.
Yeah.
So go ahead, mention their injuries.
Well, okay, so
Their receivers have been in and out of the lineup. Their offensive line, they've lost their left tackle, Garrett Bowles, for the season.
yeah. They have had a lot of injuries, and some of them have been pretty important injuries. Some of them I don't think have been as important, and when you can make that into a bigger thing than it is by saying, hey, look at all these injuries, let me list them. It's like, yeah, but how many of those really made a massive difference? Garrett Bowles makes a big difference because all of a sudden Calvin Anderson is your left tackle, and that's not anywhere near the same thing. They've been one of the teams, though, whose offensive line is headed in the opposite direction of the teams I talked about that have successfully crept back toward average. At one point, Denver's offensive line was a top 10 unit in the NFL. It absolutely isn't that right now, but neither is it, one of the bottom offensive lines in the league. It isn't a catastrophe, but it's being made to look a lot worse because Russell Wilson and everything else is not working.
Right.
Look, the injuries have been a factor, as has everything else that's gone wrong for this team. Like, the offense doesn't function. Russell Wilson doesn't function. None of the skill position players are necessarily overcoming. Losing Williams at running back, Javonte Williams, has been a big blow to them as well. So this offense is one of the worst in the league because everything's bad.
Yeah, pretty much. Everything's bad. The Broncos have the best coverage grade in the entire NFL as a team. You mentioned how good they are on that side of the ball. In the last matchup, though, it was Josh Jacobs running all over the Broncos, right? That was one of those games where I was saying, hey, the Raiders found their groove. They're going to throw a fullback in there and go big up front and run play action off that, and they won up front pretty well in that last matchup. And I could see that happen. I'm going to lean on that happening again. I'm remembering Mike Kliss talking about Broncos beat reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about how the Raiders seem to know how to beat the Broncos.
It's another rock, paper, scissors.
It's one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
They're the rock to their scissors. Raiders are the rock. Everyone else in the league is paper, but scissors are coming to town.
You see, they're
going to scissors.
The XFL draft was yesterday.
Yes.
I think it's still going, maybe. But they had The Rock announcing those picks because The Rock owns the XFL.
Yes.
Literally as opposed to figuratively. But surely that's at least 72 degrees below his pay grade to be like Roger announcing the draft pick. You know, Martavis Bryant to the Las Vegas Vipers.
He invested in the thing. He's trying to add some credibility to it.
But surely this
Bruce Gradkowski can't add credibility to the XFL by himself. Our boy Bruce.
Yeah, it feels like there's a middle ground between, guy off the desk that nobody knows and The Rock that could be announcing these picks.
Yeah.
The man's busy. The man, I don't know
He's
how
not
much.
too busy for his own investment.
I don't know how much that amount of time for The Rock costs, but it feels like a lot of money.
Yeah, I could say that. I could see that. Yeah.
It feels like it's not return on investment.
You tell The Rock that.
I tweet him right now.
I can get to him as my.
He retweeted Ian Hartitz. You see that?
He did.
Yeah. Hartitz was like, Martavis Bryant's back. Let's go. And The Rock retweeted it. It was like, we spoke to Martavis. He's ready to be electric or something.
I think I've told you before. I'm a couple degrees of separation away from The Rock.
Yeah.
My high school baseball coach's girlfriend's niece married The Rock. So we're close. I could get a message to him.
You should.
Spend your time a little bit better outside of the XFL draft. Mm-hmm. All right, what are we talking about in this game? We have one more game to get to after this. Let's go. Make a pick.
The Broncos.
I'm taking the Raiders. Raiders getting 3. They own the Broncos. Like Kliss told me.
Yeah.
He knows. Heads or tails. Heads is Broncos. Tails is Raiders. It's tails. The coin's taking the Raiders like me.
Okay. Coin's going your direction, a lot of these.
A bunch. There's enough.
That should be concerning you, I think.
That my coin flip is as good as my picks. Well, we'll see. We'll see how effective.
As good as, but is the same.
Last game of the week, Washington Commanders at the Houston Texans. The Commanders coming off the big Monday night win. They're favored by 3.5 here against Houston. Mm-hmm. A lot of run game here. You got Dameon Pierce against what Washington just did with Brian Robinson, with Antonio Gibson. They were running the ball like crazy against the Eagles.
And Taylor Heineke.
Heineke's getting the start. If you do want more Washington analysis, we did talk Heineke on the show yesterday, right? We talked about yesterday, the Monday night recap. We talked about Heineke being the guy over Carson Wentz, even when Wentz is back and eligible to come back, and they're going with Heineke.
Yeah, it's now 3. Let's move.
It's down to 3. Houston's getting 3 points.
Checking these live as we go. Just because that's the difference, with our picks. It's that half point right as we get towards game time. That's what's screwing us.
It is. Yeah. That's definitely what's throwing us off here. They keep changing things.
Absolutely. Look, the Texans are not a good team. They're 1-7-1 for a pretty good reason. But Dameon Pierce is amazing. He's their best graded player, I think, on either side of the ball. Laramie Tunsil is playing really well at left tackle. Jerry Hughes all of a sudden is getting back to being the Jerry Hughes that we thought they were going to get and wasn't really there for the first month, 6 weeks of the season maybe, but the last couple of games he's looked a lot more like Jerry Hughes. That's a big thing for them, but I think Washington just have more. The thing that can help Houston is the thing we talked about with Taylor Heineke, the YOLO propensity of just pitching the ball into the air and letting Terry McLaurin go make plays. So far, they've caught the good end of those outcomes generally, but that's a very risky proposition.
Any given week. Yeah, as I said yesterday, Heineke's played 1 good game out of 4, and they're 3-1 with him as a starter. So whatever you want to do with that. The last game that was good, the only game that was good was the last game, was Monday Night Football.
But it's also like, we think that the term 50-50 ball is a misnomer because they're not, right? When you look at what you believe to be a 50-50 ball, or even if you look at things like the sort of AWS, what do they call it, the percentage, the catch probability, and it's like catch probability of 23.5%. Like a 50-50 ball is actually more like a 75-25 ball. And at the moment...
That's not what Heineke's throwing, though. He's throwing passes into triple coverage and double coverage that the defense has. Like, those aren't even 20-80.
Yeah, but my point being, even a true 50-50 ball is more like a 25-75 ball.
Agreed.
And at the moment, Heineke is leaning more towards things that are 25-75 anyway. So I don't know what the actual percentage chance of a turnover-worthy ball into triple coverage is. But my point being,
it's low.
At the moment, they're getting a better than 50-50 return out of the passes that should be like 75-25 in the opposite direction. Whatever the regression to that, it's going to hit hard when it hits.
Okay, I get what you're getting at here. The Heineke regression's coming. We just don't know which week.
Yes.
We don't know when it's going to happen. I just want to shout out the Washington defense has been very good in recent weeks. Montez Sweat playing really well. That defensive front, Jonathan Allen.
And they're getting Chase Young back
And
soon.
Chase Young has been activated, right? He is he's expected to be activated from the PUP list ahead of Sunday's game and make his season debut, according to John Keim of ESPN.com. So we could see Chase Young. We'll see what his, I say pitch count because that's what everybody says. But somebody said, no, it's snap count. We'll see what his snap count is. But like pitch count implies putting a constraint on you.
Snap count is simply a descriptor.
Exactly. Pitch count is like, hey, you got 30, you got 40, whatever it is. But that's intriguing, I think, for Washington, who's come along. Also, I know that the Commanders had a disappointing season last year, but in 2020 they overachieved, go to the playoffs, win the NFC East with a losing record, I think, right? But I thought at that time that Ron Rivera would just kind of help them elevate beyond where their roster is. Last year we didn't see that as much. I think we're starting to see that again this year. I think that the totality of having a better than average head coach, right? A guy with a pretty good history, Ron Rivera, seems to be working pretty well in Washington this year. In other words, they're going to sneak some more wins. And I think they should take care of business against the Texans. I would take Washington, I think, to cover the 3.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you a lot, which I don't like given your record so far this season.
This is when I turn it around.
But I think I'm going with you.
Heads for Texans here.
I mean, the other thing is that Washington's offense does have more than just Terry McLaurin. As much as he's been generally the source of the YOLO passes, like if Taylor actually looks around the rest of the offense, there's quite a lot of other good receivers that can make plays. So, I think they can do some damage in the pass game. Their defensive line should put Davis Mills under some pressure. Like, unless they completely capitulate against the run and Dameon Pierce goes nuts, it's kind of hard to see Houston hanging that close, even at home.
It appears to this website that leans tails.
Yeah.
Has me picking the road team quite a bit since I went tails for the road team.
Okay.
That's about even. I have 5 differences with the coin.
Huh.
So we'll have a few data points to look at.
God, I'm not sure what's the better story to come from that.
We'll see.
But I'm excited for it either way.
I think the next course is I'll have my 7-year-old make the picks for me. Harry, who certainly has pretty good knowledge right now. He's got some good knowledge around the league. And I think he could do a better job than I could.
Again, we would have to track your picks versus
me versus Harry.
Versus Harry's.
Yeah. Next week we're going Harry's picks. I'll
Perfect.
give him the spreadsheet, let him fill them out. All right.
If he kicks your ass, that's gonna be a rough.
I'll just be proud of my son.
Yeah.
We'll give him a job.
You would be
Just
able
hand
to
a job to my son.
It's like, there's that psychological thing of there's a day in every person's life where he's able to defeat his father at something. The man takes over the pride. The young lion takes over the pride. The old guy's got to slink off and go off into the wilderness on his own. This would be a really young point for that.
Yeah, it'd be a little
for
early.
that moment. The 7-year-old, that's at 7 is when the boy realizes that he can beat his old man.
Harry's got good analysis. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm just saying for him, it would be, it's a very early coming of age thing, and for you, it's a tough
It wouldn't
time
happen.
to be.
He's not ready to take over yet. He's
Okay.
not there yet. He's never heard. He's not there yet. Anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. It's our Week 11 preview. Hit that thumbs up button on the way out, and please, and don't forget next week. Programming note: just Monday, Wednesday. Okay, so Monday we'll review all the Week 11 action, and then Wednesday,
Thanksgiving.
one show. It's Thanksgiving week, and we'll do a Wednesday preview for the entire week. Every game.
What are you cooking?
For the first time ever, I'm ordering food.
Ordering.
Yeah.
What are you ordering?
I mean, it's Thanksgiving deal, but it's I'm gonna give a shout out to Buck's Barbecue over here in Cincinnati. Really good barbecue place we found a few weeks ago. My parents are coming into town, and we're gonna get their turkey and dressing,
Okay.
stuffing, and the whole thing.
I've been trying to get you to spatchcock and then barbecue chicken, and I've been curious about whether I should do that with a turkey.
Yeah, you should definitely
Spatchcock a turkey
definitely
and
do
then grill it.
I smoked a turkey last year. It was more of an effort thing this year that we were just like, hey,
It has to be, to me, the whole roasting the turkey or the chicken thing, it's fine, but it's a giant pain in the ass. Whereas if you just, rip its spine out, flatten it, whack it on the grill, it's good. But it's a lot easier to do with the chicken. Like I haven't haven't messed with the turkey yet. But
Yeah,
it feels
gotta
like it
try.
should work.
I'm going to
Principle's
try
the
your
same.
chicken at some point.
Didn't it look good, though?
It looked really good. You looked like the chicken master. It's better than the time that you showed your oven ribs that everybody was trashing.
The oven ribs are fine, but Lane Johnson hated them.
Yeah.
Because they're done in the oven. Like,
Don't mess with Lane.
I didn't have a smoker at the time. Now I do. Now the ribs are done.
Now I have a smoker too, thanks to you. Appreciate it. All right. So next week, we'll see you Monday and Wednesday. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. See you Monday morning. Thumbs up.